So today, about half the room has been with us this morning, looking at safety and a little bit of the training area. This morning's session was focused primarily on the safety component of it, and the rest of the sessions today, and tomorrow, and on will be looking at the overall product in other areas. Mentioned in our last session that we want to spend a little bit more time on inspections, and so if there's time, we're going to cover that at the end of the training presentation today. And for those, what the inspections are is, let's say that in your department you require regular inspections of vehicles or equipment or things like that. You want to make sure that have been inspected and there's a history of that. Now Dick does that a lot on the equipment that he does throughout the city, just because he has maintenance requirements. But we have, like down in sanitation, if they're going to get into a vehicle, there's an inspection that they do, or you have certain equipment that needs to be inspected. You're welcome to stay and learn a little bit about that and see if it's applicable for your areas as well. So I've got a roll that I pass around, and I'm asking you to initial it for each session you attend. This means I make a copy of this and send it off to the leads and the department directors so they know they have representatives. Here's this meeting to go around. So just the initial for the afternoon session, that'd be the bottom part of the sheet there on the day one. And so for those that are just joining us, you see the term compliance science up here. This is the name of a product. The company is Springboard. So you've heard the name Springboard, some of you. And they are part of a product that's being sold to us by Kayenta, who is producing the HR product. And this is just a component of the HR product. And they are owned by a company called Harris. So you hear Harris, you hear Kayenta, you hear Springboard, and now you hear compliance science. I just want to clarify all these names that you're hearing. CityView has nothing to do with what you're seeing today. That's another product that half the city's been working on as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn the time over to Jason. And Jason is the currently president of Springboard. Recently acquired that position. They've had some change in the company. And so this is unusual to have the guy here hearing what we need. And in this presentation, if you have questions or you say, well, does it do this or does it do that, don't hesitate to ask, because there's probably so much to this product. It's good for him to understand what your requirements or needs may be. The purpose of these meetings are for him to gather up and learn what our needs are, and then go back, work on configuring it, and coming back and saying, is this meet the needs? So I'll turn it over to Jason now.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. Springboard management has been around for about, this is going to be a repeat for some folks, sorry. I think about half the room is new, but I'm just going to kind of go over the overview again quickly. It takes about 15-20 minutes. Springboard is about 11, 12-year-old company. We are a software development company that specializes in management systems for health and safety. And we've partnered with Kayenta for about 5 years now, and we integrate with their product. They are the system of record for all the HR stuff, and we handle the compliance side of that. The agenda. So for our health and safety management system, there's a bunch of components to the system. What makes up a health and safety system is policy and procedures, tracking, certification, and licensing, online testing for the comprehension piece, competency testing for your folks. There's a risk assessment module identifying what risks your employees are going to be dealing with on the job, and mitigating those risks is a big part of that. There's compliance commitments, whether those are legal or they're corporate. or they're actually a standard that you're working towards, an ISO standard or a health and safety standard, Z1000, whatever. Incident and accident reporting, which is one of the subjects we did this morning, as part of the management system. Work observations, those are things like crew visits. Go out and make sure people are doing their job safely. Supervisors check to see the workers are wearing the protective equipment and operating in a safe manner. Compliance meetings, those are the safety talks that you have on a regular basis, tackling different subjects, new legislation, new procedures, that kind of stuff. The system tracks all of those. There's also an inspection module, which Gary had mentioned. The inspection module is pretty configurable, so it also handles auditing as well. So we're just going to jump in. We'll take a little. I'll just go over each one of these briefly. For the training side of it, there's a document control and training distribution modules, which basically take care of all those policies, procedures, tests, all those things. We call it doc control, but it handles all those different types, certifications and licensing as well. It's got revision control. It's got document reviews on a regular basis or by date. It's got renewal scheduling. There's a feedback mechanism so that if people are reviewing your documentation and there are changes in procedure that aren't reflected in the documents, feedback can be made to the owners of those documents. Keeps your documentation current through the review process. Most of the training assignment and distribution is done through a positional mechanism, and you can also do it through directly to a single user. The nice thing about the integration with Kayenta is that you only set that up in Kayenta, and our system uses that structure set up already in Kayenta to distribute the training for those positions. Risk assessment. Joe, I think, why don't I scoot through these, because I don't think the training group is going to, we've already covered risk assessment, and unless there's folks in here, new folks who are interested, who would be involved in the risk assessment process, is that?
Just give it real high level.
Yeah, I'll just give you a real high level. So basically risk assessment is a process of identifying and then rating the activities that your employees are doing that may be risky, and then applying risk mitigating controls against those risks, so that you end up with sort of a low residual that's actually at a tolerable level. Our system has an automated approach to that. We also, if you have an external company take care of your risk assessment, we can also pull those results into the system and then distribute those to the people who are doing those activities. The compliance commitments are the regulatory, legislative, and standards and corporate best practices. So basically, those are things like for instance, WorkWell is a standard that measures how well you're complying with OSHA. So all those shall statements in there, company shall provide employees with appropriate protective equipment. All of those shall statements are a regulatory or a compliance commitment that you have to satisfy. So in our system, we take those. There's actually an audit process you can go through in order to make sure that all of those requirements are being satisfied by your current training offering, and then you can measure how well you're stacking up against those legislative and standards. So a lot of the things, so the training materials that we house in the system, the testing, the policies and procedures, all those things are actually risk mitigators. So they would go against they would go against these requirements here. They would fulfill these requirements. So we map those two together so that you can say we're satisfying the requirement by a certain amount. Incident and accident reporting, that is a must for a management system. We have a form-based incident and accident reporting system. We have a simple and a full incident entry component to that. It notifies certain people in the organization depending on the type of incident that it is, so that whoever needs to get involved can get involved. There's a scorecard reporting that's associated with it that kind of gives you a view month over month of what types of incidents your organization is having, so that you can proactively start dealing with those things, right? You can also submit these incidents via email. So if you don't have access to the system, you do have a phone, you can take a picture and you can email it to the system, and we'll actually start an incident process. And then that'll be picked up by a default incident manager. Planned work observations. So this can capture the information. Well, it's like a crew visit, so you're going out to the out in the field to make sure that a job is being done to standard. So this is basically the supervisor's record of what's going on. A lot of organizations have specific targets on a quarterly basis of how many of these need to be done by each supervisor. Our reports capture that so that you can make sure everybody's kind of on track fulfilling their obligation. Similarly, the safety meetings, same idea. A lot of organizations have specific numbers of safety meetings at specific intervals, just to make sure you're keeping on top of new legislation, new practices, things like that, blitzes that are occurring from the ministry. Inspections and audits. Basically, you set up themes for this, and they're completely configurable. And you can set up these items here. You can see that we've got two inspection themes here. One is for fire, and one is for the stores here. So those are pre-configured, and then when an inspection occurs or is scheduled, these items, what we have is a lot of our customers just use an iPad. If they're doing a facility inspection, for example, and they'll just go through the facility, and it's a yes/no right here. So if you inspect a person's reached safe point, so that's a fire drill inspection, then you just say okay. If it's not applicable to this particular inspection, NA that, and then it goes away. If there was a finding, so something actually didn't happen correctly, you hit no, and what that allows to happen is you put in the deficiency that occurred, and then you can task out a corrective action for that right away. So if, for example, the fire alarms didn't test properly, you can task that out to the maintenance manager and say, hey, fire alarms aren't working, can you get those repaired right away? And that tasks him out, he gets a notification, and then that gets corrected. And then once it's corrected, an approval process occurs for the inspector. So he would get notified that it was corrected. He can go verify that and then approve this as a thumbs up. And that okays that. The other part of the product is called contractor compliance, which is what compliance science focuses on is managing the internal employees and their compliance and training. So what contractor compliance does is it does a similar thing for your external contractors. So there's certain things before a contractor comes on site and does a job you want to make sure are happening, that they have liability insurance. If they're doing special work, they've got special the training certificates for hop work or whatever it is. So you can configure the contractor compliance to request that information of all your contractors, and then before they come on site, you can make it part of either your purchasing and or pre-work inspection. Can be that you check to make sure that they are in fact 100% compliant with whatever requirements you've got for those guys. And you can even go down to the employee level, so that if you want to monitor specifically the requirements for their employees, to make sure they've got their certifications and they've watched your safety video or whatever it is before coming on site. Now this is a big administrative saver, because actually collecting that kind of stuff from your contractors tends to be a bit of an administrative burden, right? And some of the time you know you got it, some of the time you don't have all the things you need and that kind of thing. So this kind of takes that guesswork out of it. There's also kind of an audit process through here, so as they upload things and they complete the requirements, you can go in and you can review them. And then you'll see there, if these were certified as approved, then that would be orange instead of gray. So it allows you to keep, so you can review what they submitted and then approve it or decline it, and it'll go back to them and say this is not correct, you need to actually upload it, the name is wrong or whatever the problem is. So what I wanted to do now is I was going to jump into the training demonstration within the actual product. So I don't know, have you guys actually seen the interface between our system and Kyanta's through Kyanta's? No? Okay, that's fine. The look and feel is the same. Some of the functionality is only slightly different, just because we cut it down a little bit to keep it simple. Okay, let me just jump. Sorry, my mouse is on. That's Scout, by the way. He's our CFO at Springboard. Takes care of that. Okay, so let's take a look. What we'll do is we'll start with my documents, which is the document control module, which I think is where you guys are probably going to spend a bunch of your time getting things set up. So it's called documents, but that's a bit of a misnomer because it actually handles all those other types of training. You can also have exterior training, so if you've got a service provider who's got content that you just want to reference in our system, but capture that people have been made aware of it or have taken the online course or whatever it is, we can just link to their product, and you can view it in their product and sign off on it in ours, so that we maintain that record. So the document control module, there's a few things that go into document control. There's the actual creating of the documents, publishing them, expiring them as they become obsolete or the content is replaced with other content. There's also a review process, which is done by document owners in our system, and you can assign reviewers to that as well. So the review process, it allows you to set up each year, you can put it on a schedule. So annually, I'm going to review this training item, and we're going to make sure that the content is up to date, and review those comments that came in and all that kind of stuff. So if we take a look at some draft documents here. So these are documents that are currently being worked on that have not been published or distributed out to anybody yet. Health and safety, procedures. No, that's not. Okay, so here's the basic document setup here. So document name, that's what's going to appear on the listings here. Description is optional. Basically put a little more description in there than just duties of supervisor. The distribution type tells the system whether this is an item that needs to be reviewed only. Whether it's a certificate means that it's actually going to require an upload of some sort. A competency check also requires an upload of some sort from a supervisor. And then an online test will allow you to build a test within the system. So this one is in fact a certificate which forces an upload. Now if it's a license and Gary actually touched on this earlier on. If it is a license, licensing generally requires that you hit certain targets. So there could be the number of hours that you spend doing a particular job. It could be classroom time. Do you guys use certified education units at all? No?
Yeah.
So some people, yeah. So that's how you measure how far along in a license, or think about it in an apprenticeship program, right? So you got to go to school, get your credits. So credits are part of what you need. You've also got to spend a bunch of hours on the job, learning it from a seasoned pro on how to do this. So those are the types of things that you can capture in the system. We call them training units. They're configurable, and you can have as many different types as you want. So Gary, I think you were using them today as an internal incentive program, right? For your sign-in sheet.
Right.
It calculates up into some sort of HR.
Part of the project we're doing, that there's active participation in the project goes towards incentives for employees.
So that would be one of these training units. You could set that up as a training unit here, and then every time somebody took one of these courses, filled out the sign-up sheet, and that was uploaded into the system, they would get that credit. And then you could just print out a report at the end of the quarter a year to see where everybody sits on it. So that's the kind of stuff. It can be used for any of those types of things, right? Or if you just want to make sure people are spending enough hours on these training items, you could actually set one up that's called hours. And if you estimate that this course or this document takes 2 hours to go over, then that would be the number of units that you would assign to it. So basically, these training units, for licensing purposes, they just accumulate so that you can track them over time and make sure whoever needs to is keeping those units up to date. The document owner is ultimately the person who's responsible for the content of this training, right? So they'll be the ones to make the decision when it's ready to, they'll do the final approval to publish it, distribute it to the staff. I'll show you afterwards, though, there is an administrator who can kind of do that on their behalf as well, just in case, it's not all the time that the person who's ultimately responsible is the one who actually does it. The categorization and subcategorization here basically roll up into the display format for the users. So when the users go in and they see, here's your training list, it's in a folder set up, and this would be how the folders would be set up. So you'd have a folder called administration, and then below it, when you click that open, it would have forms, policies, procedures, programs, and standards. So really, it's just a way to kind of catalog your stuff to make it easy to find and easy on the eye. So you don't want 1,000 subcategories, right? Because then people won't be able to find anything. Within the training, when we get to that, I'll show you what the end user sees, but there's also a bunch of searching tools and stuff. So for the most part, you're not clicking through these, you're just searching for the content that you want. So you can add, remove. This is the administrative part of adding, removing, and setting up these categories. So that's the basics of getting a document. Here is, in fact, what the actual content of this is going to be. Because it's a certificate, you can either, when they click on it, you can have it show them something. You can just have a note there that says, hey, upload your latest certificate. Or you can jump out to an external URL if that's applicable here. Okay? So for the most part, when it's a certificate, you just put in a note that says, upload your latest certificate. The scheduling portion here, so what this allows you to do is you can set documents or training items up to become effective on certain dates or to expire on certain dates, which is useful if you're doing a rollout, new stuff. You don't want to throw 100 documents out there all on the same day, right? People will be overwhelmed. So you're going to stage it using the effective date. Or in a revision sense, you can set a new revision to take over the old revision at a specific date. Okay? So you can forward date those. The renewal period, 99 years. So basically that says how often do the people who are going to be assigned this training need to retake it. So 99 years we use for stuff that's one time. So it could be an orientation package, for example, that kind of stuff. So you only need to actually review it once, and you won't need to look at it again. Normally those are more likely the stuff that you guys deal with is 1 year, every year, or every 3 years, that kind of stuff in certs. The scheduling period is when do we start warning people that this training is due for them. Okay, so that gives them a little bit of a buffer. The idea there is so that you're never out of compliance. So I can, instead of me being past due on a bunch of stuff, I can actually use that scheduling period to give me a warning so that I can take it before I'm due and keep my compliance in check. The review date is for the owner. So if this one here is set to review in 2017. So in 2017, I as an owner of the document would receive notification. It would move into that review folder for me. So you got something to review here.
So who sets the parameters for this schedule? Is it on the employee to set it up for themselves?
No,
or?
this is purely administrative. Some of our customers, the supervisors are assigned, hey, this is the training you're responsible for, you own it.
I bet the warning, you had indicated, I want to be
Oh, the
notified.
scheduling?
Yeah.
No, that's done by administration. So that's set.
Okay.
That's kind of going to be part of the process that we're going to go through. So once we've got those lists of all of the distribution stuff, we're going to decide on these parameters. And that way we can preload all that stuff. But yeah, that's an administrative. And usually, if it's a 1-year renewal, people will give them 30 days, so 1 month on the schedule. If it's a 3-year, they give them a bit longer because it's usually more involved in actually completing the training.
Jason, can we take just a minute, because this is a little bit new concept for the departments. They've been doing this either on their own, because HR hasn't been tracking this other than driver's license or a CDL.
Oh, okay.
And we haven't, and right now, we have to go in and look at those. But just to get a flavor in the room, the question is, do you have things in your operation that your employees are required to certify on or train on or renew on a regular basis? Like in legal, they need to have their law license. And we have engineering licenses now. And for instance, maybe we start with police. Jeff, you have certain things that police officers have to recertify on, like guns.
Radar,
What kinds of things would you see this applicable for?
Several different areas, so all those certifications.
So you got quite a few that you're monitoring right now. How about the library? Do you have anything right now? How fast they can read? Okay. Laura, what do you have?
Yeah, we do. We have the certifications, apprenticeship. I think this would be a great way to track their hours. That way we would know, when they're ready to take their tests.
Okay. And we have the CDLs. On medical CDLs, you have to get in there ahead of time. Fire department has their EMS, all those. Jenny, do you have anything in yours?
We do. We have lots of different certificates and parts.
Arborists and things like that. Chemical certifications.
The pool operator certifications,
Yeah,
lifeguard
equipment.
certifications.
WSIs.
Yeah.
A lot of
Landlord's permits.
And how are you tracking those now? Just spreadsheets?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have
Yeah, the water operators have a 3-year certification.
all those water certificates down there? Yep. They get those in advance. Dick, you've got a few?
Yeah, like asbestos awareness, enclosed spaces,
Yeah.
air breathing.
Working at heights, that kind of stuff. Any of those?
What's
So
that?
what department are you?
Facility.
Facilities? Okay. Like forklift truck driver, do you have that in the
No, I
warehouse?
haven't done it, but
Oh, okay.
it could be crazy.
Yeah.
So we also see this for employees essentials, and other training programs will come out that are citywide. So instead of having to ask the employee, did you go and is your training current for performance evaluation period? This is sending out the reminder to them. And I think we can schedule this to go in the middle of the night. Is that, we want to wake them up in the middle of the night? Is that-
Yeah, exactly, and it comes with a big bell.
No, we don't.
Yeah. We've crossed that path.
Yes, we
Okay.
have.
But anyway, there's lots of flexibility to this, and feel free this over the next little while to share ideas, because I think as we've learned in the other products we've gone through, that as we got more and more into it, people start thinking, oh, I've got this other subsystem I'm using over here. Particularly down in Public Works, they've got so many divisions, and they start, every time we meet with them, it's like there's a new source of data that they've been tracking somewhere. And this is an opportunity to put it all in one place, and employees can access it, you can access it, you can monitor at your level, it doesn't have to be at the HR level.
And part of this too, the good thing about the training items too is there's going to be a bunch of certificates and just even the general training. That's going to be applicable for like a bunch of departments, right? And the good thing is that if they do it in one, they don't have to redo it in the other departments. It'll be across all of those. So if somebody moves around a little bit and they assume new responsibilities, they'll still get credit for all that past training that they've taken that's applicable to the new position. So it tracks that as well. You don't have to start again. Oh, I started a new position, now I got to do all this stuff, right? You've already done it, you're all set. So somebody mentioned the apprenticeship. Yeah, it's the licensing is an excellent way to track the apprenticeship programs.
I was just asking, how does that work with their hours? Because, they might come to work one day and they do 10 different things. Does this kind of tie in at all with that? Or just asking when they ties in at all with their, or is it totally just a separate, or just standard?
Yeah, strictly the
With the
training
handling.
items, that's right, yeah, exactly. So it doesn't actually take their workday hours and apply it to this. They've actually got to do specific things, or at least sign off on the system that they've done these things, and they get credits for the on-the-job training. So whatever those training items would be.
So does this all flow in from position on Kayenta?
Yes.
So we're not gonna have to go identify per individual, it'll be, these assignments are attached to this position?
You got it.
Okay.
So basically the positions, it's a group of training that's associated with this, position. And then it's a group of people who are associated with that position, and that's how it gets distributed. Now, if there's exceptions, you can do the one-offs that you're talking about, but those are mostly exceptions. It's just a specific situation where somebody needed this one specific piece of training that normally that position doesn't have. So, but for the most part, it'll be done through the positions.
And if the employee gets additional training that's not necessarily required from the position, they add it and they can track it in the same spot?
It's done, that's done through, the only way you can add those ad hoc ones is an administrator has to put it in through the training history upload. So it's not, the user can't just add stuff to their profile ad hoc. It's actually specific items that they need to sign off.
That'd be cool.
So would you put your career?
Actually, yeah, that's not the first time that's come up.
You may want to talk with Tony a little bit about that, because on the employee self-service module on the Kayenta side,
Mhm.
employees can go in and put skills and training and things they've done.
Mhm.
And we'd have to see how that ties out.
Yeah, we, so from, because the system is kind of built from a regulatory standpoint, and the idea there is if it's not tied to a regulatory or legislative commitment, why are you doing it, right? That's kind of been the mindset of the way the system's built. So if it's not a requirement, then you don't need to track it, is basically what.
So how do you handle then, I mean, you mentioned CEUs, and those can be varied from year to year, depending on where you go. How do you track those? I mean, you're just saying you require 12 CEUs every year,
Yeah.
and
that would be, that would be tied to your, the training items that have been distributed to you. So to get my CEUs, I need to go and take this course. That course would be a required training item in the system.
Right, but you're saying you'd have to actually identify specific courses as part of that CEU
part
as
of it.
opposed to, you know, a seminar may pop up that I attend, I get CEUs for it, but then because it's not part of this predetermined thing, I can't really track that in there.
Well, you can accumulate them, but the user can't directly upload it. So that would be an administrative task.
Okay.
So the administrator would say, oh, okay, they went to that course, so I'm going to put that in for you, but you can't load up
Okay.
stuff yourself unless it, because then you lose control of what it is. You know, anybody could put anything in there and it not be valid, right? So it goes through an administrator rather than just letting.
Well, I can see the need to do an approval on it, but, you know, one of the things that employees may find helpful is, you know, particularly police officers and firefighters who have so many certificates that, you know, they go to all this stuff and maybe it's not necessarily tied to that particular requirement, but it's certainly something that they want to use or be considered when they're filling out resumes and promotions and stuff. It's helpful to have one spot where they know this is where I'm going to track everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just keeping it in a separate file at home or an Excel file or something like that.
So we toyed with the idea, so you can set up items to be optional, right? So it's basically, I need access to this, but it's not a requirement of what I'm doing, which is similar to what we're talking about here, other than if we change that mechanism to allow them to make those, so all the courses you can accumulate CEUs on are here. You pick the ones you take, right? And then you can just say, I took that one, and here's the, and accumulate those CEUs on an optional basis. Yeah, I mean, that's not the first time that's come up. So, but as of right now, those are entered through an administrative mechanism, and I mean, there's access to those records as well. So it is stored. It's just not on the front end. The front end is basically this is what you have to do to satisfy your requirements. So yeah, we can take a look at modifying that. I'm not opposed to that. So the very last one here, sorry, schedule review months. That's the number of months that you can have it on a recurring review schedule.
Does it record hours or time? Like, our officers have to have 40 hours of time training to maintain their certification. It's not specific to such and such training for this amount of time, which is 40 hours. Does it accumulate or keep track of how
Yeah,
much?
so that would be entered on the license.
Okay.
You would say, to get this license, you need 40 hours. Each of the training items that they attend or sign off on would have a number of hours associated with it. So I'm going to this 4-hour course. It gives me 4 hours worth of accumulated time. That then goes against my 40 hours. And you can run reports that say, I'm this close, I need to finish this by this date. And the licenses have, they're dated as well, right? You need to renew this within a certain period of time, and I have 50 hours before I get that. So yes. Yeah. Advanced tier, so you can set up some search criteria in the advanced tier. This makes it easier for you to find stuff. Keywords. The searching also looks within the documents, and it will try and match up keywords within the docs as well. Maximum number of tries, that applies to testing, so you can limit how many failures somebody has before the supervisor is notified. Course number and course days and cost, those are for reporting purposes, and those are for external courses that you take. So we integrate with a couple of external course providers, and that's basically how we update our system, is through this course number. And then if you want to track costs and things, there's reporting that shows you how much you're spending on this type of training each year, so you can make adjustments there, or at least know how much that's going to cost you when you're trying to do your budget and set out your training plan for the year coming up. You can take a look at what's happened in the last year. Email notification on completion. That is, if you want supervisors to be notified when this particular training is completed by any of the employees. And then mark training complete for owner is a mechanism to, if the owner of the document actually has this document on, or a training item on his requirements, he would automatically get credit for it because he developed the content, right? So that's just administrative. Revisions, this is where you'd see all the past revisions, obviously over time. This one is the first revision, but over time, this is in draft, but over time you're going to accumulate a list of revisions. That is helpful if ever something happened a year ago and you need to go back and review the procedure at that time. You can obviously have access to the procedures that are available during the pertinent time frame. The controls, these are those regulatory kind of hooks that we were talking about that would allow you to assign this training to this regulatory requirement. So this training this training item satisfies this regulatory requirement that we are working towards as part of the standard. So this is where you hook those up. This one doesn't have any set up, but these are the controls that are in place that we can hook it up to if it was actually did satisfy a regulatory requirement. Administrators, the idea here is that I may own the document, but somebody else is actually doing most of the, like somebody else is typing it up, somebody else is managing the review process. I'm actually just reviewing the content. This gives that person access to this document even though they don't own it. So they can go through the review process and do all the things the owner of the document can. Users, if there were individual users assigned to this particular training item, this would be the list of them here. I can add and remove them from the list. It's as simple as, people here, you just keep clicking on those people, and then you click add, and then they will be assigned to this. This is the least used method. It's the positions that are generally through the assignments, and that should be probably the only way for you guys, because Kayenta's being the record, the system of record for positions, then I would like Kayenta to take care of assigning all those. Reviewers, that's for that review process, whether you do it once a year, once every 3 years. These are people who, I may own the document, but I need a subject matter expert to talk to some of the content in the procedure. Right? We're responsible for getting it out there and approving it, but I need other people to actually review it and make sure that it is correct. So this would be a list of those folks, and they get notified when it goes into the review process, and they need to do a sign-off process before this document gets approved. Positions, this is where you see all those positions. You guys won't have to manage this. You'll see all the list of positions that come in from Kayenta that are assigned. So you won't have to worry about this. Comments, this is where, as part of the review process, you would be looking at any comments that came in for this document, and you would see if content needed to be adjusted based on what people are talking about. Do you guys do that? Do you guys have a mechanism for that right now? Outside of the review process for your training, do you get feedback from employees about the procedures and policies or anything like that? No?
So whenever we're changing the city policy, we will ask feedback from the director and their level to take it back out to the organization, their staff meeting, and give us feedback on some of those policies. And then occasionally we'll get feedback on individual policies where the employees come up against a concern or needs clarification. Is this something that is a feedback mechanism?
Yeah. So basically, like in real time, they will be able to, so if somebody's out in the field and they're performing an operation, and what's happened over the last little while is the tools that they're using have been replaced. But the procedure says you got to do it a certain way, and they realize that, well, we don't even have the tools that satisfy that anymore, or if we do it that way, somebody could get injured, right? Immediately they can put feedback against that here, the owner of the document then gets notified, and you can make the changes and redistribute the corrected version.
Well, it sounds like it could be used for example, our customer service training. They're not clear on the training itself, and maybe need to clarify the follow-up training for that specific topic. They
Yeah.
get feedback in that way.
Yeah. So there's the immediate notification to the owner. So there's kind of a conversation that can occur. So you could make that call kind of on the spot, and then when through the review process, you could say, "Wow, we're getting a lot of those kinds of complaints. We need to change the training material itself. It's just not working right." So that's a really good mechanism for keeping your documents up to date and making sure that they are actually hitting the mark with everybody. The units here are these are the units that are actually accumulated by this training item. So when I clicked on the license there, that's what the total license requires. This is how many of those units this document would accumulate against that. And then right here, it's in draft. I can either choose to publish this as the owner of it, or I can delete the item, that it's no longer relevant. So in draft, you can delete things, but once it's published, you can't.
What if the owner of the document leaves the employee of the city? Is there some way that administration can change the ownership of that document?
Yes, yeah. As an administrator, I'm in as an administrator now. I don't own this document. But as an administrator, if you're tagged as administrator, you can certainly change all those things, yeah.
Does the position own it or the person own it?
For documents, it's a person who owns it.
So in her case, she's a zoning administrator and she leaves and someone takes her place. We'd have to reassign those documents to that person.
Yeah, the administrator, that would be, an administrative decision would be made who they go to, and then the system administrator would go in and you would assign those accordingly to new owners. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so administrators get to go through and do all of this, and a lot of the time, the administrators end up becoming the owners as well, right? Because it depends how you want to organize that. None up for review. If I had any up for review, I'd have a number here, but these are all the ones that I'm supposed to review on some sort of basis. And then these ones here are the ones that I'm a reviewer of other people's documents. So that just allows you to see if I've got anything pending here. If there was anything pending, this would be red and have a number there to tell you how many things you're actually having to do. Look at my training. So typically for users, when you come in and you're going to take care of your training requirements, you would get this view. So these are those categories that I was talking about. Health and safety was a category, and then it had a bunch of subcategories: forms, policies, procedures, reference information, and safe work practices. So this is how that translates into the display for the users. How do you guys distribute your training right now? Is a lot of it done like in classroom like this and sign-offs? Is it a manual that you give them, and then they sign off that they read it, or
Every area is different.
Yeah.
All of those.
so how does your parts? So how
A lot
do
of
you
ours
guys-
is done in a classroom setting.
Okay. All right. So you don't have the employees do a whole lot on their own?
Citywide training is
Otherwise-
all online.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have some online trainings, after those safety trainings, a lot of them are videos and documents you have to go through.
Okay. So, and then how do you guys actually record that information in your records? Is it just sign-off sheets and then you putting
It's
that forward?
online, actually. You
Oh,
do
those
an
ones are
online
all-
training, and then, yeah, it shows that you've completed that. You can print a certificate out physically if you want, and then it'll send like the administrator a copy of who's
Okay.
got that certificate.
And then for the ones that you do the classroom
Most
stuff,
of ours are just a sign-off sheet.
sign-in sheet, and then you file it away? Okay. All right. So, so the advantage here is, this allows your employees to do all of that online, right? So if you want. So you can also do the classroom stuff. You can have them sign off that they were aware of the training, or you can just do a sign-off sheet right in the system. And you can just add those to it, and then they'll get credit for the classroom time that they spent as completed training. So any of the forms and things that get distributed, though, will be accessible to the employees through this portal. And this is similar to the portal that's shown almost identical to the portal that's shown through the Kayenta interface as well. So you'll have access to this through the employee portal in Kayenta. Are you guys implementing the employee portal?
Yes.
So the standard red button with a number on it means I've got something I need to take care of. So the employee also would have been getting notifications that this training is past due and you need to take care of it. There are instances where some of our customers in the past have had, we can set it up so that for certificates and licensing, the administrators would take care of all the uploads for those. So it all depends on who actually receives the certificates. Sometimes it's the organization because they set up the training, and sometimes it's the individuals themselves. So however that gets organized, you can handle it either way. And in those cases, it would just say managed by administration, and they would have to take care of that. Red means you got to take care of it. This one is just a document review. I can just read the document, swipe aware, and that'll be taken care of. This here tells me how many regulatory requirements this particular item satisfies. So if you're working towards a standard, or whether it's a corporate standard or whatever, you can see how important these ones are towards those. These are how many comments have been made against this document. You can review any public comments against it. So that if your comment is already there, then you may not want to bother. And over here we have the history. So you can view the history of when this particular training was taken. Prior to that. All right, so let me jump into the administration. Any questions about, is this something that you do, will your employees jump on this? Will they want to use this kind of interface? Policies, procedures, reviews, all that good stuff?
I have a question on the notifications. Do they get the notification through the portal, or is that to the administrator who gets it more than people?
They get an email notification from the system.
Not from the person?
No, you don't have to. That takes that off of you. And we can also set up, there's a weekly, basically a weekly review that we can set up that gets emailed to everybody that basically says. So when it becomes due, you get poked and it says, hey, this is due, you gotta take care of it. But we can also set up a weekly email that goes to everybody that kind of gives them an overview of their status, their current status with all their training. You had a question?
So in the classroom setting, say we all signed a form here.
Yep.
Somehow that's got to get put into there.
Yes.
Who's going to put that in there?
So administrator can do it. Take that sign-in sheet.
They have to go put it in each individual person?
Yeah, you pick them from the list of people. The other way to do it is just have that up in the classroom, and when people are coming in, you say, okay, or leaving actually, you just say, okay, click here that you were here.
So the administrator can be set up in each department. And you could, can you have multiple administrators in one department?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you have multiple people with rights to go in and update.
Yeah, yeah, so this kind of mass, it's pretty quick to do the sign-in sheet scenario.
So let's say they have a safety meeting and they want to record everybody that came to that safety meeting that day. And you've got it maybe takes place out in the field. A foreman wants to record that I did this tailgate talk or safety talk on this topic, and these are the guys that were there.
Yep.
Can they do that on mobile and quickly just record the guys that were there?
Yeah, so you can do that on mobile. These are the safety ones, and you can just add attendance roster right here. So you can just pick your folks who were there and add them all in.
Okay.
Because they'll already be in the system, the people that work there, right?
That's right,
For that
that's right.
department.
Yes, they'll all be already in the system.
And you can do it off your phone?
You can, for some of this stuff, it works well on the phone. There's too much content on here to slim down to a phone. It works well on sort of an iPad, like a 10-inch screen is good. We've got companies who are doing their inspections just purely on iPads. But on the phone, so we've got a couple of mobile apps that are coming out that will allow users on the phone to get quick access to content, supervisors to get quick access to their employee statistics, and then for the incident reporting, we're going to do a phone app just to get an incident quickly started. But for a lot of the system, like you can see, there's quite a bit of material there, right? It's kind of tough to shrink it down to the phone and get enough info for it to be usable. So it is mobile friendly, but you just can't shrink it down enough in order for it to make that happen. So yeah, these are kind of the roster, the attendance rosters that you can build within the system. You put in the department that they're part of. Some of the pickers are actually a little quicker than this one. This one you have to pick and then add. A lot of these are pre-built for those types of meetings. So you would actually set this up and then go do the meeting, and then anybody who didn't show you can just say it's absolutely true. One other thing I wanted to, did I go through the dashboard with you guys?
You just
Just this morning? Okay, I'm going to just show the dashboard. So depending on what's preferential to you, a lot of companies have just the training, my training come up, just so as soon as an employee goes in, they can just see the red marks and they click in there and the computer delivers it. Others prefer the dashboard view, which gives you kind of an overview of where you sit from a training standpoint. So basically, I, as system administrator, I'm 79% overall. All my certificates, 81% of doc reviews, my online tests are not satisfied, and my competency checks are 100%. And then what that means in actual, just real numbers, is this. And then it gives me a little bit of information about my profile and what kind of documents and things that I'm responsible for. So this is pretty useful. I can come in and I can say, okay, obviously I want to take care of this. And it'll just give me, instead of, it goes to my training, but it just filters for the things that are past due. So it doesn't matter what category or subcategory they were in, I can just go through each of these really quick access through the dashboard there. Take a look, show you. Okay, so my administration is basically system setup. Obviously, you've got the users and the positions you won't have to worry about because that's going to be coming from Kayenta. But the business unit will actually be making, we'll be talking, determining over the next couple of days how those are going to get set up. So whether it's you know, from the org chart, whether it's sort of, are we gonna have kind of the 5 business units, or do we need to break them down a little further than that? And basically, when you assign a position to a user, that's where the business unit comes in. So you can have the same position assigned in different business units because they share the same requirements in the system. So for the training, so if you need to ever look up a single employee, so we were talking earlier about training records, right? And some are in the folders, you know, some you don't know where they are, some I gotta go pull a sign-in sheet, whatever, or round up some certificates. For the training history, you can get a full user training history this quickly, right? So you can just look at an employee and you can see all the things, where they were last completed, make any adjustments to any of these records that were incorrect. You can see here that they accumulated 0.25 on the job credits towards one of their licenses or certifications for reviewing first aid policy. So this is where you would be able to kind of quickly show where somebody sits and make any adjustments that need to be made. The other one is the training record entry. So this is the quick entry. This is where you could do the sign-in sheet. So you drag the sign-in sheet onto here as the proof, and then you basically pick the training item that is associated with, and then you just start picking people on the sign-in sheet. Pick them all and associate the position to those, and it says the completion date as whatever date they actually did the classroom training. Did they succeed? Put in any notes that you want available, and you know, all those people fall in there pretty quick. Now, is there anything, that's kind of the administration of the training. Is there anything else is there any questions from the training standpoint?
So you have 3 different departments taking one training. When you pull that up, is that going to pull up each department and send it back to their departments, or do I have to go in and change that out?
I'm not completely
It's like all them guys work in the same department?
Where's that list coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is that,
That's just from the employee, that's all the employees in the system. So it's not, that
as
list
long as
is-
they're in the system, you can find them in that?
Yes, yeah. So it doesn't matter, as long as they're assigned to the training, it'll give them credit in whatever business unit or position that training is applicable to.
Can you filter that list down to departments? I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Division.
there's 1,400 employees.
Yeah.
Oh, pick the have a department picker here and then pick the people from there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, we don't do that on here, but we can certainly filter that. Yeah.
What about the licensing? Like, I don't know if you can show what that looks like. Licensee,
I'm not
where
sure.
to sign up.
Let me have a quick peek at whether we've got licensing set up well. So let me just bring up the reporting and see if we've got that.
Could you also filter by kind of other things besides the department? For instance, some departments may have 150 people in them, but the training only pertains to 12 of them.
So you can, so here, and that's a good question actually. So if I do, let me just get rid of these. I'll go back to the licensing because I don't know the answer to this. Sorry, Tracy.
That's okay. Is this something I'm interested in?
Well, I gotta find the right report for the licensing. Okay, so now what I could be doing,
So an example would be you have a public works department, but this training is applicable only to streets workers.
Yeah, you know what we should do that would make this, if it should only actually bring up the user list for the training element that you pick. So if they're not assigned to this training element, then why have them in the list, right? But that would stop us entering that ad hoc. I think that's probably why it's that way.
And is that derived by their position that may require that? So it comes off the job description?
That's right. So if they're assigned it through a position, then they should show up in the list. So as soon as I put in the position or positions, or sorry, the training element, that tells me the positions, and the positions tells me the users. So we could do it that way to keep the list nice and tight.
Yeah, but I would think that you would want to be able to add people to that. I mean, you may take training in anticipation, you know, you may be
Yeah.
trying to get ready to be promoted to a position that requires it.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. It would stop me doing that ad hoc stuff, right? I could only then assign it to people who had it required. So I think that's why it's not that way.
Could you put the position in, grab the people you want, then take it out and be able to add somebody that isn't in the position also?
Yeah, we could actually just put those around, right? And then just let it filter by position.
What
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff we can do with that.
What were those inactive people? You had a whole list of inactive names as well.
So those are people that have been inactivated in the system, so they're no longer with the organization. They show up there because sometimes you don't get training records until well after the fact, or if they need to update it from, there was a mistake and this certificate didn't get uploaded at the right time.
The only issue I can see with that is, we hire about 400 or 500 new seasonals every year. So within 4 years, you've got 2,000 names.
Your deactivated list is huge. Yeah.
You're trying to pick through and stuff.
We can definitely filter these down. Yeah. Yeah, we can make the pickers a lot smarter, that's for sure.
Occasionally we'll get a request if they're applying for a job that requires a federal background check on some driving histories and things like that.
Yep.
That we need to be able to go back to a former employee and pull that up. But otherwise, we'd want just actives.
Yeah.
Our training's time-based, would you be able to add the time spent, and then would it be able to calculate that, keep a running total of how much time each guy has in training?
Yeah, that's what the licensing training units are about, yes. So for this bucket rescue internal training, that could be worth 10 on the job hours or whatever, depending on what that is. But we don't actually track the time that you're out in the field, but it will track, you can assign time to specific training items in the system. Now let me just take a quick peek for some reporting on the licensing. I don't know if we've got it uploaded here. If we don't, what I'll do is I'll set it up for tomorrow. I don't have any of the licensing reporting set up. So I will set that up tonight, and then we can take it. Are you in tomorrow? Can we go tomorrow? Okay. I'll set that up.
She's here all week. Should be good right for
Try the deal.
That seemed irritating.
It was.
So some of the training reports that are available, and hopefully this will make your lives easier. You can run these by a specific supervisor. I'll just run it for the whole organization. So in this case, this gives you sort of a quick visual overview of here's the supervisors, here's the folks that they're responsible for, and here's their statistics in terms of where they sit. So this is a quick and easy report to run that you can identify quickly. Oh, we need to pay some attention here to Steve. He's only at 36%. We got to get his training up. You can drill down into, see exactly what these items are. The reporting tool we use is called BERT. It's a Business Intelligence Reporting Tool. So these reports, these have been built over time, obviously, but we can customize the reports to fit whatever need. And this is Steve's, basically. These are all his items that are on time. So that's some certificates and documents. And these are the ones that are past due that he needs to take care of here. So we can take a look at all that.
Yeah, that's my question.
Do you really have an employee whose last name is Smigilski?
I didn't set up the data.
Okay, I'm just curious.
No, I just don't know.
These are not, these are all fictitious.
Okay, I was just.
We can do also, like there's a bunch of training reports here that you can quickly kind of decide whether you want to put together a training course. So you've got, here for example, the Women's Refresher. This one, there's a ton of people who are out of compliance with that are due. So these are the reports that you can run on a periodic basis and say we need to set up training for that, or we need to do it in-house, or we need to get people on those so that they're aware that this training is this is causing us a big problem from a compliance standpoint.
Is there a report for CEU, like shows how many?
There is. That's the license report that is not set up in this particular one, which I'll show tomorrow. I promise.
She'll remind you.
No, I'll have that set up for tomorrow. And the only thing that's going to, you know what? I have another system that I can show. I'll figure that out. I don't want to waste your time running through, but I will have that for you tomorrow. So training by business unit, that will be very applicable to you guys. You can pick which business unit it is you want to do, and you can do a start and end date. A lot of the reports, not as many on here, are actually set up for the business units. So we've got over, like this system doesn't show it, but there's over 230 reports. So we're going to have to go through a process of determining for you guys what's applicable and not spending a whole lot of time on things that aren't applicable to you guys. The training matrix, this ends up looking a lot like your spreadsheet. So you've got your cells with your red and green. Here's the users down this side and how many items they have that are not satisfied. And then you've got these are the training items across the top here. So you can see, obviously these ones, this yellow is in warning, green is in. This one's, depending on how many there are, it spreads out the content. But do you guys do training matrix like that? Big spreadsheet where you got all the people and then all the courses and you've got big X's all over the place and you try and manage it that way. Yeah. So this kind of duplicates that, just to kind of give you a quick visual as to where you're sitting. Training coming due, that allows you to keep on top of training before it's actually due. Training forecast, this is a good one for if you're planning out your upcoming training.
Does it give you the option to create your own report?
Yeah, you can. So there is a tool. There's a user's tool to create the reports. It would take some technical ability though. So if you have an IT staff, they would be able to learn the tool, or we generally build them. So we could do it either way. But there's not like an end user tool. Do they have that in PeopleSoft for you guys? Yeah, where you've got access to that? Yeah, we don't have, Bird's not as easy to use as that. So this kind of gives you a flavor for what's upcoming on training. This is a good planning tool. Any of the reports you can download as well to either PDF, Word, or Excel. So if you needed to pull this into Excel to do some manipulations and figure out, when you wanted to schedule training and things like that. This one only looks to the future to see what training is actually coming up by the training item itself. So you can kind of plan out what it is you want to get people working on with this report. Any questions about the training rollout? There's also a concept of the optional training, which is basically allows you to distribute content to people without having them sign off on it. So it's not a requirement of their position, but they may need access to some forms and things like that. The reports are also, the security for the reporting is done through the positions. So you basically assign a reporting group to a position, and that gives access to those people to run those reports. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
So a number of departments probably have content from outside parties.
Yep.
For instance, HR has one that's Bureau of Labor Research, BLR, that does a lot of our employee essentials training. How do we take those and put them into this product to utilize to manage that training?
So what does that content consist of? What would it? Is it actual documentation? Is it testing? Is it?
It's a learning management system
Okay.
that incorporates videos and interactive activities.
Okay.
Like testing.
So there's a couple of ways we can do that. If you're happy with BLR and you want to continue using their content, we can interface with them and pull the training records back to our system to give the certification of completion. They'll send it. That basically comes back to us, and then we mark it off here as complete, and we can manage the scheduling and all that good stuff. We do that in two ways. There's some of the companies that we interface with, they do sort of a bulk flat file every day. Some of them do a real-time interface where they would be presented within our portal. That content, on completion, they send us a signal back, we record it right away. So there's a couple of ways we can do that. We'd have to just talk to BLR and see how the interface, their side would work. But yeah, external content is available through the system.
Does anybody else have external content providers they use, or is it all developed in-house for what you're doing?
I know Energy does.
We have external?
They do.
Okay.
So we can accommodate that. Basically, we do the record keeping, just not delivery of the content. So, yeah.
Do any of you have online courses that you take, for instance, I don't know, I'll pick on police, like a post course they can do online that you want to make available through a product like this? Say, here's a list of post courses we encourage you to take online. And so Jason, we're looking for one place where they can go and see all that's available for their position. We can display the content or the URL in here for them to go out to.
That's right. So basically, for the external stuff, it looks just like to them. I don't know if I have an external one set up. But this might have external code. So. So basically, this is all exactly the same, except for when they click this, it's not pulling an internal document. it's actually jumping out to another site to your content delivery. Okay? And then for this, yeah. So we don't, so what in this particular case, to manage their MSDS program, they've actually got, for MSDS, you've got to keep the documents updated. They used to expire every 3 years, and you have to go in and get new ones and put them back in and all this kind of stuff, right? So a lot of people just said, well, that's too much hassle. I just want somebody to take care of that for me, but I want access to the up-to-date stuff. So that's what's happened here. So this is an external link to a company called MySDS that manages those, that part of it for them, and then we just link out to it. And then in this this case, the items that are presented in black here, those are optional. So this is not something I need to sign off on, but it's something I have access to should I need it.
And then it would come back, you could do an interface to come back and say they completed it, and it would update this record.
If it was that kind of content, yes, exactly. So when they would come back, it would just check off and say you've completed that. Unless they failed it on the other side. So those interfaces are we do that with other systems already, so it would just be a case of doing that with BLR. Are there any training types that you don't think are applicable to the system that you're doing right now? That we might not be able to handle any kind of gaps you see? Okay, so what I'd like to do, so over the next couple of days, I'm hoping to accomplish a couple of things. I'd like to kind of walk away with those policies, procedures, and certifications that you're currently managing. And I'd like to start applying the categorization to those and the frequency of renewal and all that. We can work through all those things. Set up kind of the file plan so that we know what it's going to look like when it's presented and stored. We need to take a look at the business unit structures and decide what positions under each of those get what training so we can group them properly under those positions and get that all set up. I'd also like to see if there's any, we need to identify mostly is going to be the gaps, right? So if there's certain things that you're currently doing that you're not going to be able to do in this, we need to identify that and come up with a plan that's going to take care of that. So we kind of did that this morning with the incident reporting. So we'll kind of formalize that a little more and actually do a proper gap analysis on that. Come back with a solution for how we're going to tackle that. So what I wanted to do, maybe what we can do is just kind of review that. It's like just an Excel worksheet to collect that information. And so if I can show you guys how we can get that going, and then we can actually start collecting it, and then start working through how to organize it and that kind of stuff. Is that fair? All right. Now, did you guys get a chance to grab the lists of policies and procedures?
They weren't aware of that because I didn't get a response to the question. We didn't understand what it is you're asking them.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. So all of the training that you guys sorry, all of the, all the training items that you guys are currently managing and certificates and stuff. Is there a central list of all those things? Do you guys, is that accessible to you? Kind of.
They were asked to each bring from their department a list of all certifications and licenses required in their department.
Okay, so the certs and the licensing, and then if we've got policies and procedures, can we get those too?
Do you want to just have those emailed to you?
Well, no, I want to get them into the spreadsheet so that I can actually start cataloging it
So it's not the actual policy, you just want the name.
Just the name, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
for instance, we sent you all the names of all the city policies, the civil service rules and regulations, and some of our other policies.
I just need the departmental ones
Departmental.
from each of you guys, is that?
Are you gonna need to know when they're renewed and that, because like I have a list of certifications, but I don't have dates, how often they need to be renewed, does that need to be?
We'll be going through that as part of the discovery process over the next couple of days. Yeah, so that we can start cataloging that and get ready to get it in the system.
Are you talking about renewal by person or renewal by how long the certificate lasts?
So how long the certificate lasts? Yeah, not by person. I don't need any people information yet, just the actual policy. So is it a 3-year that you want to renew? Is it every year? That kind of stuff.
And then
Policies on the trainings, is that what you're saying, or just?
Yeah, just like
policies in
corporate
general?
policies, early and safe return to work policy, the health and safety policy for the department, that kind of stuff. Some of those might be actually already given to us.
So what we're asking really is all types of policies, SOPs, directives, and any content that you want your employees to be aware of, not necessarily related to training, but related to operations of the department. This is the library for maintaining the current policy.
Yes.
For your employees. So this is a list of anything that your employees should be aware of that is coming out from the department. So if a new employee gets hired, they have one repository where they go to. It's no longer going out and looking on the S drive or something under certain directories to find this document or that document. This is the repository for where you keep your current version of a policy, SOP, directive, notice of change of policy.
So I have a question on that, because I thought we were bringing like list of, okay, these employees need to be CPR certified, these employees need AED training.
Right, that's what we asked you to bring to this, is certifications
Okay.
and licenses. And now what we'll need in the future, next time we come, is a list, not the actual policy, but the list of
Like our dress code.
anything,
stuff like that.
anything
Like
that's
those
not
kind
the
of
city,
policies.
anything that's not the citywide policy. We provided that, department-specific policies.
Anything you want to confirm that
We have
they've
a
seen.
specific.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is where, when an employee gets hired and you say, we want you to go out and review the departmental policies or procedures, or maybe it's training material, this is what you want in the system for them to review and be aware of.
I'm sorry, when should we have this ready? For tomorrow or?
Well, we can start tomorrow. Like, I mean, if you don't have it all for tomorrow, I'd like to start tomorrow if we can, but if you don't have all of the policies and procedures for tomorrow, then we can certainly start with the ones that you do have. And we're going to relate those to the positions. So there's this relationship, the training elements, groups of training elements are assigned to positions, and then groups of people are assigned to positions. So that's kind of the link between the two. So I don't need to see exactly who, I just need to know what positions require this training. So we won't go to the individual level, just to the position.
That's a lot.
So, yeah, that's a very quick turnaround during the meetings here all day. But the other question is, so you'll get us started on completing the workbook that shows on the spreadsheet of putting this information in. And then will this workbook be available for people to go in and update this after you've left?
Yeah, we can make it, exactly, we can make it a live document. So, I mean, we don't have to accomplish all of this today. I mean, I'm not going to go back on Friday and start organizing the system, right? But what I do want to do is get a handle on what Provo is going to look like in your system, so that we can start organizing and configuring and getting it ready to go.
What do you mean by position though? Like we have over 200 particular job codes that, for example, like one job code would be a police officer 1, and we have another one that's a police officer 2. We have 200 of those separate job codes, and then we have upwards of, 900 different separate positions that are assigned one of those particular job codes.
So the 900 different positions that are assigned those job codes. So in Kayenta, have you guys laid out what the positions look like for the Kayenta?
Well, it's a mix. You've got some that are going to be on a one-to-one basis. So we have a lieutenant who's filled by one incumbent, but we have different lieutenants who also have their own position numbers. Most of them are one-to-one, but we have a bunch in Parks and Rec and Energy that you may be able to fit 20 incumbents into one particular position.
Right.
Like we have 90
So-
lifeguards.
Right, so ultimately, the plan is to, assign, the way we've talked about it with Cayente, is we will go by position and say, this lieutenant requires all of this. Now, hopefully we'll be able to clone a lot of that for all the other different lieutenants, but it's not always the same.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, so let's figure out then how we can make this work. Okay. So maybe what we can do then, do we have that listing of, like from HR, would you be able to supply the listing of the
We have a list
positions?
we have a list of all of our job codes, so a lieutenant, and all of the certifications that are required of that. But that's it doesn't go to the detail where you would say 40 hours of training and what that means, whether you have to recertify on shooting or your OC spray or whatever the case may be. Ours would be post-certification, driver's license. In certain situations, it's advanced post-certification. That's what we would carry. We would do that for all of the positions in the city, so wastewater certificates and all of that. What we don't track is all the other stuff.
So,
Training.
okay, that's done on the department level, is that right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Currently,
yeah.
we'd love to be able to identify it and attach it to that position so that they can monitor it, but we don't track it currently.
I think, what he's talking about is the position, you're talking about individual, so like what a person's individual portfolio of their training probably wouldn't be represented in this.
No, I think that the position is what,
Yeah,
identifying what's
Yeah.
needed.
yeah, what's needed for that, but not what that person has done throughout their career, that's a different.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the requirements.
I'm
Yes,
wondering
there's
though,
one.
because aren't there some position types, like it could be like an office specialist 3 or something, or a management analyst 3, but they'll be in a different department, and so even
That's-
that will be different.
That's why it's
Yeah.
tied to the particular position number.
Yeah.
So, exactly like that, I may have a classification or a job code number that's different in different ones. Like I have an analyst in energy and an analyst in Parks and Rec. Well, they may have different trainings, or one may actually require a driver's license. And so the only way to distinguish that is if you go to the position level and say, this particular position requires this type of training or certification.
So
Right.
there's general training for a classification that will require a certain level, but the departments then would have specific.
Okay, so we would, it sounds like what we would probably do in that case is have sort of a corporate, here's your corporate positions that get assigned, which has the stuff that is required across the board. And then for the additional departmental stuff, we would have the departmental positions. Does that sound like?
That needs to
Can
come.
I understand?
See, that needs to come, in a way, that needs to be coordinated with Cayenta because we anticipate that on position control, that everything that's required for that position, certifications, trainings, and whatever, will be incorporated in the position description and go to the recruiting for the posting, and then we'll match that up against the candidates for evaluating candidates, and then it'll be look at their strengths and weaknesses for the position, and then that shows up to be tracked in the department. Plus any additional, those are requirements for the job, and then you have the on-the-job training and recertification and renewals that take place for that position. And so that, our understanding is that it's feeding a lot through the Cayenta position control. And so that's why I want to make sure that we're not providing you some things that we're going to be providing over on the Cayenta side that are going to be at odds.
Yeah, no, so I would want, it would have to match what's in Cayenta, right? So Cayenta would feed us all those things. We would just then, on our side, we would have the training that's set up against those positions.
Right.
So the actual items, the individual policies, procedures, training items.
So Kayenta would have the requirements, and then this would monitor ongoing training and retraining and recertification.
Well, no, I don't think Kayenta has the requirements. We're going to manage the requirement side, their system of record for the organizational structure and the employee and supervisor.
Well, no, we'd have to have the requirements before we can do the recruitment, and before we can do the for the job. That'd be part of the job position control.
I think I'm going to need to sit down with Tony Lemon and go over that, because that's not what I expected.
So we ought to have a good discussion on that then.
Yeah, I think we need to do that before we go any further then.
But I think that gathering up the information, if we get an idea of what the workbook is, I think sitting down with Tony, you two can touch base tonight on that.
Yeah.
So we come tomorrow. And then the method on how you want that delivered to you, do you want them to send it to you electronically, or do you want them to go in and update the shared document?
I was going to just send, for each, I was expecting that I would just send the spreadsheet, the workbook out to each department, one person in each department, and then they would be responsible for getting that together, and then each department would send me the finished product.
Okay.
So if we can do it that way, I think it would be best. But yeah, I need to, so I apologize. I think I just need to sit down with you and make sure we're on the same page about the organization of that. Okay. So what we can do though, so why don't I briefly just go over the workbook and then there's not a whole lot to it, so okay, so for the file plan, this is basically how we want to sort of categorize and subcategorize the documents that you have. So I put in just sort of some examples of ways that we can do that, and this may just be more of a discussion point once we have the policy, the listing. So over on this side, the way that it's done here is by sort of subject, and then by type underneath that. Lost my connection. Oops. Oops. Lost my interaction. Well, if you remember. Okay. Okay. So basically, this is the category, subcategory that we're going to set up. On that side, the way that it was organized there, which may or may not work for you guys, it's really kind of like if you could just kind of ask the question, how do we organize that right now? And what makes sense for your department? So is it done by subject and then type of document? That's how that was done over there. So it was health and safety. This is health and safety related, and it's form, policy, procedure, on training, or whatever. So we need to kind of build how we want to organize those, and those are going to translate into those categories we're going to set up for all the documents. once we get that in place. The actual training here, this is going to be the document that we upload into the system to populate all of the training items that attach to the positions. So basically, it's a cut-down version of the maintenance screen that you saw earlier. So really, we just need the name. The type here is a drop-down. So it's a review, which means you just need to swipe that you're aware. Competency check, which is probably the least used one. I don't even know if you'll have to use it here, but that's one of the, I observed them doing it and I'm approving it. And then the certificate is an upload, so that's all licenses and certifications. And then any online tests that we're going to be tracking in our system. The document owner will be whoever owns it here. That just allows us to set that up quickly. And then this category, subcategory is going to come from here. So the file plan kind of needs to be decided first. If not, you can just leave those blank for now and just if we can get the basic listing going. If there's an attachment type to this, so this should be either a document or a note, so a file, a URL, or a note. Attachment value, so if this is a note, then you would put a value in here. Please upload your certificate, whatever. We probably don't need that though. Effective date, so this is basically the effective date of the current version that you've got out there when that came into effect. We can decide if we want just to make that a future date and just leave that blank, and we'll decide when we're going to make those effective once the implementation gets to the point of distributing. So for now, don't fill out the effective date. We do need the renewal period though, so that's basically that. How often do I need people to retrain on this? Once a year. 99 years means we only look at it once. And then the scheduling period is how many days before it's due do I want to alert them. And then for the review stuff, this is the number of months that between the document owner reviewing the documents. And then if you want to put in here the actual document name, you may not notice at this time. So you don't have to actually put that in there. So those once we actually get the documents.
On the renewal and the scheduling, it seems to go back and forth between months and days. Is there a set, I assume the 30 is days, but the other one is years.
Yes, you're right.
A month.
Yep, no, you're right, that's a good point here. So 30 is days.
30 years ahead of time.
30 years, 29 years before. All right.
And then schedule review is
Yeah,
just months.
that's months, we got it, yeah. We used to have it for each, you could either put in years or months, or weeks or days, but then it was really redundant. Everyone seemed to use just what we've got here, so this is months. Okay. All right. Then the positions, we're going to have to bucket. So once we've got the other stuff, we need to start. So you don't need to do this right away, but we need to take the positions that we're going to have in the system, that list, and then we need to start saying, okay, these are the training items that are associated with that position. Okay, so we can start bucketing those in. The other thing I would like is, for the reports that you guys are using today on a regular basis, that are kind of your key reports, if I could get some samples of those. Now, have those already been given to Kayenta? I don't want you guys to do it again.
Which samples?
For reporting purposes, so.
No.
No?
I don't think that a lot of them, we don't have a central reporting process right now on it, so that may be some discussion about what you're looking for.
Okay, well, that's exactly what that's for. So I'm hoping that we can pull all these kind of report samples together and then say, okay, what's common among all the departments, so we can make sure we have and if there's any special cases of special reports that you guys are generating, we can compare those against what we have already, and then decide whether there's gaps and whether we need to develop something for the implementation.
Pretty much we all have Excel spreadsheets right now, and that's about it.
Which is great. So yeah, okay. No, if that's what you got, no, and that's common, right? That's pretty much how everybody's doing it. And then any form samples. So that would be the incident, accident, which you've already given to Tony, which I'll grab. But if there's any other forms that you're using on a regular basis, whether it's a tail board or an inspection form or whatever, those would be helpful so that I can measure those against what we already have in the system as well. And then for the contractor compliance part, if we can basically to get that set up, we essentially just need a list of companies that we use as subcontractors. Well, no, we don't need all this. We don't need all this for tomorrow.
Oh, good. Cindy was working on that.
Or before you leave the meeting's fine.
Yeah.
Before you leave the meeting's
You've
fine.
got 10 minutes. Now, for the training stuff, that includes the certs and stuff. So if you've already got those lists, then you can just plug it in here, right? And then we can fill out this data. Like, we can go through, I was thinking what we'd do, get the basics in, and then if we need to go through these and discuss, as part of these discovery sessions, how we want to set these up, then that's what we should be doing, right? So the lists are the most important.
Has there been any discussion about how you're going to get the existing information into your system? Will the administrator in each department have to just manually enter what they currently have?
No, that's what this will do. We're gonna
create a big spreadsheet and import it.
That's right, exactly. And then we'll actually get the documents that support all these items here, and we're gonna load those all in. So this is actually gonna feed into your system. Is that scary, or is that crazy? Well, that's good. Now, part of this could be, like, I mean, depending on how we end up, what the implementation plan looks like, this is not going to happen overnight, right? Like, this is going to be staged in, and we're going to be doing it over time. So we'll be identifying what are going to be the critical ones. When I talked to Tony Lynn, I don't think it had been determined yet, Gary, as to whether there's an implementation plan through department, or has that been discussed for the timeline?
They're downstairs right now working on timelines.
Okay.
And that's something we need to coordinate with
Yeah.
them, because I noticed it's on your schedule for tomorrow for discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're prepared yet.
I had put that on there before Tony Lynn had said, "Oh, we're not quite done."
Yeah.
With doing that. So, yeah. So we'll slide our implementation in alongside that, depending on how that rolls through. But yeah, this is going to be the master to get all your data in there. But yeah, the manual entry would take forever. That's why we're doing this. Trying to make life as easy as possible. Okay, so I think if we can maybe get those certificates and licenses in here, and we can have those for tomorrow. And for the positional stuff, I'm going to talk to Tony Lynn, and I'll get from her what that looks like, and then we can coordinate how we're going to bucket those things.
So if we do not have certificates or licensing, we do not need to put anything in here, is that correct?
Well, if you have an opportunity to get your policies and procedures, that'd be great. Do you have policies and procedures for your department?
Yeah. Yes.
No?
For the city.
Well, these are internal policies and procedures. Like if you say, let's see, what could be
dress
I guess
code?
if Parks and Rec has a specific dress code.
dress code, or if there's a process on how funds are handled in the department. If there's
like a policy on like how we, our relations with BYU, with like the council.
right, and it may be you have in library. You guys have a list of operating procedures for your employees, or anything in particular, or this is how we conduct business in the department, this is how we check out that you publish to the employees that they need to know.
You may have a health and
You
safety
can add it
manual.
later.
So is there a manual? So when you started at the library, did they have a manual that they said this is our orientation?
No, the city did.
No? Oh, the city did. So you use almost exclusively the city stuff? Okay.
So that's good news, bad news for some departments. If you don't have anything to put in, that's kind of good news. If it's bad, it may be bad news that you might want to start looking at standardizing operations. Just to give you a flavor, like in Karen's operation, Amanda has probably diagrammed, what she told me the other day, 700 processes in that operation. So when an employee gets hired in Karen's area, there is a work, there is a process. Yeah, nobody wants to work over there. No. So they have everything laid out because they have to handle a lot of processes for a lot of other departments, and so they need to know exactly how that process works and make sure the money gets. They give out the right information and so forth. Other departments have things that are required by law. Some are just procedures. We see at some departments that'll send out a memo and says, from now on, I want you to do something a certain way. And it's recorded. And all this goes back to, it's used for a lot of things. One's for training, others for the employee saying, I never knew that. How many times have you had an employee correction meeting or disciplinary meeting that said, nobody ever told me that. This is where they're being told that. This is where, this is the procedures for how we do maybe maintenance on things, what our requirements are for cleaning the kitchen, you know, whatever it is that employees need to know. So for some of you, when you see this spreadsheet, this is a little foreign to you. Those that have been working with City Youth, they've been doing this for months. They've been working on workbooks, having meetings, gathering up all this information. Kari's gone through it in her area. Karen's done it extensively. So this may just be a little foreign. So I think if you have questions that come up, Jason will be available. You can email directly to him and say, what about this? What about that? But the idea is we want to help you get your content in here so that Jason can go configure this, bring it back to us. You can go through it and say, I understand it. Yeah, it works. No, it doesn't work. We've got to change this. Oh, I want to add more stuff to it. Or, you know, we decide that's a rotten policy and we don't want it anymore. We're going to take it out. But the intent of this is to build this now. You are the representatives for your department. And before you, I think we'll probably be taking a break here in a minute. Before we do, during that break, I need to know which person in the department is going to be the lead person responsible for this. I'll be sending out an email to all the directors indicating that person that will be the lead for their area so they can understand. I'll be sending out a copy also of the attendance so they know who hasn't shown up, so they know they get somebody here for that.
And we just need to focus on the things that are actually required. So don't worry so much about things that are, you know, you need access to only. Worry more about the things that are required items for the employees. So, like, not forms and things are not necessarily always required. They're kind of optional. You need access to it when you need to fill it out, but you don't actually have to sign off on the form. So the requireds are more important than the optionals. We'll get to the optionals, but not necessarily in these few sessions.
Is this spreadsheet, are you sharing this with everyone to add?
Yeah, I'm going to email it out.
So Elizabeth, you'll be leading your area.
Yes. So I'm wondering so there's multiple tabs on here, one of which is positions. How much of that do you want us to correlate with the HR?
I'm wondering if you ought to color block out the ones that we don't want them to mess with.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. Because positions, I need to talk with Tony Glenn before we actually do that, just to see exactly how she's got that plan to roll out.
So we put together a little instruction email that goes out with this.
Yeah. So for now, what I'd like to do is if we can, if anybody,
What's that? This one is.
whoever's going to be the designated
This is just listing out your stuff.
owner for this,
I don't think we have to hold people together. You just have.
they can just email me at this address, then I'll have your credentials so I can email it right to you, the spreadsheet.
This is just for this component.
So can I ask you a question that you may not know about the
No.
positions? We'll find out about that. But let's say, so at the rec center, we have a position called guest services, and we have probably 80 people in that. The majority of them are required to have a food handler's permit.
Okay.
But a few of them will just can never work out.
So you gotta start
requiring.
with
Is it something that we could go and you could, the supervisor
you
could
down for now,
individually
but if you
take that
want
off, those 10 people, and say, these 10 people that is not required? Even though we want it to default to the position,
Yeah.
but really not everybody will end up getting it.
For the positional ones, the short answer is no. It doesn't work that way.
Right, but I'm creating guest services / concession services.
So it'll be.
But the majority, I think your concern is the majority do need it.
Correct.
So generally what
And
we
you may not know until after
It's
it's
start
done.
out
Right.
years.
So generally what we do in those is we'll have a separate waiver that we upload in place of the permit.
I think you take what.
So that's how they're satisfying the requirement.
Different ideas.
They've been waived of that because they don't do the position.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm sure.
If they're the exception, now if it was the other way around, and they were the majority,
This
they
is
would
what it's
apply that your solution.
Cody's gonna be. He's
Or it could be something that
safety,
administrator
a
or
lot of stuff,
personally just adds to that.
safety stuff.
To that particular user. If it's
So
one
maybe
or
if
two,
he's
it's
bringing
good
it
to
to you
just
to
add
put
it to
in,
the user.
or he's
But for you
working
guys, I
on
think
that,
because
there's
we're
one
integrated
major
with Kayenta,
Yeah.
just concentrate on the positional stuff.
So can I quickly go down the list and determine who the lead would be in energy? Laura, is that you or Brett?
Probably me.
Okay.
I'm on assignment somewhere else.
Well, Travis kind of mentioned it.
Finance, I don't know what we got. I'll have to get back on you guys may just be doing your own. Dick, you probably just do facilities for yourself. Lynn Schofield's there. Daniel, who's going to be leading your area for this?
For filling out those,
Yeah.
Chris.
Okay. Congratulations, Chris.
I saw the roll of the eyes.
Chris has no idea on the HR side. But she's got, she may be putting more of hers in the Kayenta side than some of this side. Matt, are you going to take anything that's for your department? Would you get back to me on who that'll be?
Sure.
Okay.
Josh.
He's not here, you can assign anybody that you want.
Josh is there.
Rhiannon, legal? Bud? Okay.
Oh, he loves doing this.
Cindy, it sounds like you're done, but put you down. We did have Dave Lemmings coming too. Karen,
Yeah.
who's the lead in yours? Matt? See how easy it is? Police, who's going to take the lead on this in police?
Tracy will have training and then Jared will have policy.
So policies up. Can I have one person that just the two of you guys work together and I can just coordinate?
Tracy
one
then.
per- Tracy? Okay.
Tracy.
Okay. Kari?
Yes.
What about your
Me.
part? Okay. So Jenny will work with you.
Jenny just comes for fun.
Okay, I think that's everybody.
You did it wrong. Sorry.
So now that you feel the mantle of ownership, you might want to be asking more questions.
Thanks.
But so there is the email address right there for Jason, and you may want to copy that down. but he'll be sending it out to you. But want to make sure you don't spin your wheels, that you have a good sense. So maybe for tomorrow, you might go and get a sampling and come back.
Yep.
Just with a couple of things, say, okay, this is what I understand. But I think they're going to wait. They want to see the spreadsheet come to them so they can look through and see what the outline is.
Yeah, so if you guys email me, whoever you just identified as the owner of each department, just quickly email me and I'll send you the spreadsheet.
I'll send you an email with their emails
okay.
and CC them so they know. You want to take a little break?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, break is good. Why don't we take a break?
I think community development needs more Gary. They're talking. They have to.
I'm sorry, I missed Carrie.
That's okay.
Got you, Carrie.
You want it down?
Well, you can reassign her when she gets back.
Oh, I have contact.
Scott was a little mad when I showed up. He was like, so is this the public works? No, it's not. Yours is even a little bigger than ours.
Nice. When you gonna?
So it'll go out May 1st. You can have that.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. I haven't seen a bill yet.
I haven't gotten it.
All right. Thank you.
Knowing what the minimal
I believe so. So they
I don't even know the last one.
Well, I was just looking at that, it sounds like now they're just talking about.
What's the last 2 hours of this? It looks familiar. Information collection. What's left to discuss?
So building inspections is
I shall hang around to see what it is, but then I may have a very short lease.
This is like the HR safety training.
Okay, so you guys...
So it doesn't sound like I need to be in the rest of this. What he said, I know you got your area. While he's doing this training, this stuff. Well, what you guys have been talking about, no. Are we on a break? What is my safety, my tax and reporting to
But I'd rather be done.
I have no idea.
That's fine.
I'd rather be
There's nothing
Okay,
that's a
so
do the rest of my work.
there...
So, is that all right?
Okay.
Sure.
All right, well, let me, yeah, we don't have any...
So what about me? Do you need to say?
At least to stick around and see what it is. I'm not sure.
Okay. I have a question for you.
I can't answer that.
It's a work question.
So I don't think this is not applicable to you.
Couple of days, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem so. So if that changes, then we'll just
Sounds good.
Okay.
Give me a jingle. Okay, I guess I'm checked out of here then.
Okay, change your mind, you talk to Gene and say, hey, maybe we do that.
Actually, we do have a manual, here it is, if that happens, then, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, then I guess I'll let you know. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
So what part of Canada are you from?
Ontario, Windsor, Ontario. Why, did I sound funny? Did I sound Canadian?
I had a question in mind, you know, here we've got
I'm
this
originally
policy
from
going
Alberta.
out.
Oh, are you really?
I came down here as a transplant.
You know,
Oh.
we have a policy
and I
for.
And you stayed? Oh, it's
Code of
beautiful.
ethics.
I love it here. I've been
We
here
have a
for.
policy about that. Would we be able to utilize
nice.
this instead of?
Yeah,
a
no, that's
form?
it's beautiful. I haven't seen much, but
wondered.
even just having
you
the
still have to
backdrop of
answer.
these things is great.
Great place to live, great place to be with family. So I've enjoyed it.
That would save you
Yeah.
work, if you could do the code of ethics and the
You know,
disclosure.
my folks gone now.
Especially if you have nothing
I
to
won't get
disclose.
back there.
No, I doubt it.
Like he used to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I'm a Western Canadian.
Yeah.
We report to respond to Surrey.
Sorry.
No, I was here for less than a year for my country.
Yeah, so home would say,
You sound
Yeah.
like a Yankee.
Yeah.
So I can check just really questions.
Yes.
When I first came down here, the English was proper, everything, and I was always correct all through my head. And I was Is they?
I agree. Okay, well, that helps me out.
It was.
Thank you.
No, I just checked, every time you say it, I just kind of smile.
A couple of little things gave me away there.
Just the little things, it's all good.
That's funny.
Hey,
Take care.
On standard operating procedures, like our reclamation, they have standard operating procedures that are equipment specific. That's not something you'd be looking for, or would it be? Because they have big manuals that are like a certain piece of equipment that just ties to that, but it's basically how to run it, what to do. But it's not like a requirement.
So it's actually a manual. It's the equipment
Yeah.
manual rather than the SOP.
Right.
No,
I would-
so those aren't required.
Okay.
So generally, though, if there is an SOP
Right.
procedure,
Right.
that's what we would be interested in. So the manuals, no, but the
Yeah,
SOPs.
and that they call that their standard operating procedure, but
Right.
it's basically manual how to, it's equipment specific.
Yeah. Yeah, usually the SOP lays out here's what needs to be referenced the manual, right? But yeah, but they're using it as that, so it's not a
Would like
requirement.
would like a cell phone policy be sent?
No, that would just be a policy, right? Like, you know, maybe hours you shouldn't use your personal phone,
Right.
something like that, right?
Okay.
So that'd just be like an office or general policy. So those would be good to have.
Okay.
Yeah, those are good.
Jason, we're wondering, we have 2 annual forms each year that the employees are required to fill out.
Thank you very much.
So one's a code of ethics that says, you know, this is how you should act in public.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
Yep.
read through it and say, I agree.
Yeah.
And so currently, we've got a form/workflow that we go out, you know, we send an email and say, you need to go fill out these forms, and then they go fill out the form and it routes, and just puts the document saying that they've signed it
Yep.
in our document
Is it
management
a-
system. And we're wondering, instead of doing it that way, could we do something through this system like policies, where you send out a new policy that says, you know, you
So-
confirm you've seen it?
Yes.
Could we do something similar with the code of ethics? You either say yes or no.
Right.
You know, there's no in between.
Right.
And then the managers would be able to bring up a list of who's
Yep.
completed it for the year. Now,
Exactly.
even though it hasn't changed,
That's perfect for the.
that would
for
work
this.
there.
Yes,
So
exactly.
the other one we do is an annual disclosure. So you go in and 90% of the people or more have nothing to disclose, you
Mhm.
know. But if you own, you know, a business within Provo City or
Oh, I
that
see.
has, you know, ties to Provo
Ties,
City,
yeah.
or you've gotten a gift over $50.
Yep. Any conflict of interest stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's the other one we do annually, and I'm wondering again if that could go, it just would save us a workflow.
Yeah.
You don't have to create a workflow,
Absolutely.
it can be done this way, because you can just, you know, push that citywide once a year.
Yep, absolutely.
And then
Yep.
they just go in and,
And say, yeah.
I agree.
Done. I don't.
but on the one that with the disclosures, if you don't have disclosures, it's easy enough, you can just say, yes, no, I don't have any disclosures. But
Right.
if you do, could it then come up almost like a quiz, saying, well,
What are you, what are you
you know, and then you
disclosing?
could ask, should
Yeah.
you have this, could we do that type of a thing?
So the way we've done that in the past is if you do need to collect some information back, we've used, I don't know if you've seen these fillable PDFs. If it's just kind of a form that you just need somebody to fill out information.
Pop that up.
Yeah, and that would be associated with the requirement. So you click on it, the form will come up. If you have no, you know, you'd have a checkbox that said, I have no disclosures to make.
You're done.
And then you upload it back into the system as proof. And then if you did, you would disclose in there. You don't.
With it being disclosed, what we do now is if they come back and it says, I don't have anything to disclose, it just goes into the document management system. If they have something to disclose, it goes to the director for their review.
Well, you know what, that's a good point, because you wouldn't want to actually have to sift through all those to determine who's got a disclosure and who doesn't. Right? So how would we handle that?
I mean, if we have to do it the way we're doing it now, that's fine. I just wondered if this would be a better
No,
solution.
it does seem like a really good fit.
I would like a better solution.
Just a little off, right?
So you could just see on the list who hasn't done it, and you could send them a reminder.
Yeah.
I
As
did
I'm
this
in the midst
just
of-
for you.
As I'm tracking it every
Thousands,
day.
thousands. Yeah, she's got a ton.
So how do we tag, the problem is how do we tag the ones that are disclosures so that whoever needs to follow up on that can follow up on them? So how do you do, oh, it goes into the workflow and then you just print a report that says,
The
show me the people
workflow
who
looks and
disclosed.
the workflow can see what their answer was. And if it says nothing to disclose, it goes directly through. If it's something to disclose, it goes to the director, department director.
Yeah, and that's almost, like that capability is sort of the online test capability, but it seems like it's getting a little more complicated than.
But we could do the code of ethics at least, that would say one of them.
Yeah, let me think about that one. Karen, that'd be a good way to do that. So.
All the directors probably, and I mean, they will. Well, I'm wondering if they were in the, if Sire, if they're not stored, I mean, Janine doesn't store the dashboard on the floor, but we can. Okay, then I would say, yeah, it's just, you know. Okay. Well, I do know, for example, especially that's a directive of ours, and they pulled it because it's, you know. Okay.
We don't have to have no
Well, if it was set up as a the rules are not, I think we're okay.
So I think that is probably one that standard stuff. You know, when their campground, they have like wires, electric wire around their campgrounds.
Not all of them, but in Banff, that's what we have.
Yeah, so that the bears can't get there. Oh. See, I have
Well, their
two
whole park system just has a totally different ethics than the American National Park
Yes.
System, because most of their national parks in Canada, a lot of them like in the Rockies were created when the railroads were like being built through those areas, and so they built these towns in those areas as tourist destinations, so they were kind of like resort towns. And so they still have trains going through most of the parks, which like, that would never happen in like Arches National Park. But in Canada,
I think this will help.
they have like,
Or is it just a different, it's just a different way, maybe sometimes.
well,
yeah, and that's, I mean, that makes sense because they have a lot of issues in Alberta with invasive species. And so if you bring in your own hardwood, like you're bringing in you could bring other redevelopment. So that's also part of their way of controlling that, which I think is really smart. Yeah, no, I like
about my bears and my two big concerns.
No, but I like my experience with they're different ethics, which I think
One big fire
Gary, what do you think about if folks get started on
How about our own
couple hours? Talk to Tony Lane about how the position stuff, but that may change what we have to do tomorrow. And I give these guys a couple hours to, yeah, have you cool with that? Yeah, that's gonna make a difference, exactly. And that may change what we end up doing tomorrow morning. So just really prepare for that. Okay.
Are you sitting ready?
That's all he goes.
Going out on the way.
You don't open them like
There's
that.
one down there, a little old. Wanted it.
I know.
Just throw it away. Throw it away.
You finish my tip, you
Are you
poor
checking
man. Yeah.
You didn't open your chips out, did you?
I'm good.
That bag is like made out of plastic.
Reinforced. Yes, I'll have. Check with Dixon.
Just for 1 minute, back chance, all those conflict of interest forms will be done by the end of the week. I have sent out email. And I'm sure you.
Oh, and one more thing. It's kind of interesting because technically I have nothing to do with it.
Right, well, same here.
Years ago, the legal department, I guess, they would tell directors it's your responsibility, it's all on your head, so if you don't get it, it's your problem. And then when I create the forms, then I kind of feel.
Yeah, the same here, people are always like, why do you make me do something like this? It's a legal thing, right? It's just
So
like anything
that
else they
when you don't do things right, you should get better.
But so many things like this, everybody thinks it's
Janet, why are you
it comes
doing
from me,
that?
I'm like, this is not from me.
Yeah.
My part.
All you can do is keep trying.
Oh, I know. You know
I'll
how
probably
that
get
goes.
an email the first of next month.
It's
Probably
just like
wait till the
time, it's just like
15th.
time entry, you know, if they miss something, I'm like, well, I didn't get my phone call, well, did you put a note? No.
Yeah, but you're right.
And I'm not, you know what I mean?
I totally do.
Yeah, you get that all the time.
It's like I get calls. Well, you still get this here? No.
I know.
I mean, like, especially last night, it's done. No.
And just because you're a director, it doesn't mean you can only work for you. It's close. It is what it is.
Sometimes that's nice though when it's black and white, because it's,
I agree.
no, it's not like, I could open it and fix it if I wanted to.
The thing is too, they've got to take some responsibility. That's what I think.
Oh, yeah. Like when I did something 3 months later that used my overtime, it's kind of like, really? And you're remembering correctly after 3 months?
I think we're mostly back, Jason.
Okay, great.
You understand.
All right, I think, so I responded to folks who had sent me their email address. I think what I'd like to do then is if we can break today now, and we can spend the time actually on starting to collect that information and come back tomorrow with as much of that as we've got. That'll give me a chance just to talk with Tony Lynn as well, how the Kayenta side is going to be organized on the positions, so that we can get those two things coordinated for tomorrow. So if anyone's got any questions before we break.
Could we maybe?
Carrie. Just as a friend, as a personal friend, saving you among the horde of people in this room, okay? Go ahead, ask your very important question.
Never mind. After everybody else leaves, I was wondering if maybe we could just go, it's helpful for me if we actually, I have an example, you walk through one, just in case that brought up a question for when I go back to my department.
I agree with that.
I have.
Why don't we do
Experience doing the work that's right.
Yes.
Thanks for asking, Kari.
Let's go through one.
Yeah, thanks, Kari.
Whatever.
So,
My Tracy's smarter than that. That was a personal conversation.
I didn't know I needed to bring Scott with me.
Surprised you did.
We brought the person who knows what's going on.
She's going to talk a lot. Puts her head down.
Drop this in light back.
So do do you have an example of a piece of training that we can run through that you know of right now from your department?
Yes, so.
Oh, don't be so greedy, Corey.
Sorry. Hey, I asked the question.
You got the answer.
So the one example I have is a food handler's permit.
Okay. So what we're gonna put here is just the this is what's gonna show actually on the screen when they see it in the listing, right?
Okay.
So this is what we're actually gonna put there. If you want, if it requires additional description, which probably this doesn't, it's fairly self-explanatory, you could put additional description in there. The distribution type for this one is you need to ask, is it just strictly somebody needs to review this? Do they need to upload something against it? Or is it a test?
They need to upload a certificate.
So this is going to be a certificate. Who is going to be responsible for this training item? So who's responsible for checking the revisions, setting the scheduling? Is that
Bryce
going to be
Merrill. No.
Was it Bryce?
Bryce.
Merrill?
Merrill.
Okay.
You have an extra meeting.
There's an extra seat there.
Oh, that. Bryce isn't here, is he?
No. But he's watching though. You can
Can that be multiple people, or would you have to separate that into different line items?
Right now, I think we'll just set up there's only a single owner in the system, but we can add reviewers to it.
So would that mean if multiple departments have the same kind of certification, how do you handle that? Just each
Or in the
department-
absence of.
We would just need, if multiple departments have the same documentation, we would only need it once. We'll just assign it to multiple positions.
As
So-
far, even for the owner, like that wouldn't mean that the person in that department could still go and review it?
We can make somebody else, well, we can make them both administrators and they'd have the same access, right? So we could do that. So for document owner, yeah, that's a good situation. Okay, so why don't we have that as, just put a comma separated list in there then, if it's that situation where you got multiple people. And then we'll deal with that when we do the upload. We'll actually make those the secondary ones as administrators to that document as well. The categories are going to come from the file plan here, right? So how do you guys usually, like just in general, how would you categorize your training? Like what would the food services permit?
Good question. Probably training.
Certificate.
So training and a
Take
certificate.
a course. Yeah.
Yeah, take a course.
We're just going off your one below.
Category. Oh, the one at the bottom there? Oh, okay, yeah, these are just kind of samples. So you're thinking it would be, this would be a good way to categorize that for you
Not that we
folks?
do it though, but they have to go somewhere else and get it
Okay,
written up.
so training certificates, so we're gonna actually use those over here.
Our training or someone else's? No, someone else's to get the certificate.
Correct.
And all these roll up to is just the categorization for the display for the users, right? There are a couple reports that you can report training items by category if you want, but for the most part, it's just for that display, so it's easy for the employees to find stuff or understand what it is they're going to see in that training folder. Okay? So it's really just a visual.
So I do agree, we sort of, everybody in this room has to agree on what those categories and subcategories are. Correct?
Well, we can categorize and subcategorize them
But that's a subcategory.
for departments. So they can be different between the departments. Now, if we can make them all the same, I think that would be great. So we can have those discussions. So once we've got those listings, I think that's kind of the discussions that we'll have, right? Like, okay, can we consolidate these? This one seems like the same, can we not make it the same? Let's standardize it across. We just need to get those lists first.
Can you go over what you think categories would be? Because other than training, I'm not sure what there are.
Well, it's kind of like the type of activity that you're doing, right? So it could be related to health and safety, could be, what do we have the other one there? It could be standard operating procedures, and then within that you would have, specific standard operating procedures for in the field, standard operating procedures for in the trucks. You could have a preventative maintenance program that would be a category. And you would have specific subcategories below the preventative maintenance. They end up kind of being like the subject of the content, right? So is it health and safety related? Is it like, what are the other things that Parks and Rec does?
Most of ours are gonna be under that, CDL licenses, CPR, first aid, lifeguard certification, lots of different certifications.
Do you bust it out into sort of the areas of Parks and Rec, like pools, would they have, like would you have a category for pools, public pools, and then that would have your certs and stuff separate from category under?
Thinking in here, I was just thinking everybody would be together under training, but.
So, so somebody who works in, now is that Parks and Rec, is that maintenance too of all the stuff, like cutting the grass,
Yep.
taking care of the trees and stuff as well? Okay. So,
Correct.
Why couldn't you break them up in like parks and then recreation separate? Like you have in some situations in the past. Can you do it that way too?
Good.
And do do parks totally separate than recreation?
I'm trying to blend a little bit.
The point is just how detailed do you want this? How many categories do you want? Do we want 35 categories, or do we just want 5 categories?
and that's really a question of how do you want it to display on for the training menu there for your users.
Because and let me know if I'm thinking of this the correct way. If I'm picturing a lifeguard logging onto this and an arborist logging onto this, I assume they're going to see different folders because they're only going to see the folders that relate to them. So they could just say training, but what's in the lifeguard's training folder is going to be different than the arborist training folders.
Exactly.
So the category here correlates to the folder we saw on the dashboard?
Yes.
Is that what?
Yeah. It's just a visual, it's just basically a cataloging that makes sense to the employees. So if I was looking for the health and safety policy, how would I get there? If I was looking for the chlorine handling procedure, how do I find that?
So to me, it doesn't make sense to divide it out into Parks and Rec because
No,
the same
I was
person would
just
never be
backing
looking
up a
for
little
those
farther.
folders. Right?
Yep.
They would never have both of those.
No, this is exactly
Never.
the conversation, right?
Then when you're putting the policies in, each department has their own policies, so you may have the same title. I guess cell phone policy for Parks and Rec might be different than the cell phone policy for Public Works, and even within the divisions,
Correct.
in the department, there may be different.
Almost sounds like you need a category called job specific, so that they know, so they know this is all the certifications that I can acquire.
Yeah. Well, that sounds logical to us, because if we went with our police officer 1, 2, and
Right.
senior officer and stuff like that, that might be able to break down our categories that way. If it's an arborist and a
And then your
lifeguard, maybe it's
subcategory.
different, so.
Then the subcategory applies to the category, right? Police officer 1 and 2, then they have their own subcategory.
Cara, you're in charge of this whole thing, so what do you
Yes. Well, what I envision for this project.
For this corporation.
Yeah, so that would be awesome.
See the first one that starts there, then we call her
Yeah.
all the time. Just so you guys know. Call her and say, how do we do ours now?
I don't like these categories that we come up with.
All the spreadsheets for the resource groups.
I don't like scrolling through the lifeguard.
So I'm just going to bring up some sort of samples. Now, we don't actually have to go, you can just categorize them if you want. We don't have to subcategorize them if it doesn't make sense.
Have you done any other cities or anything? Do they have examples you go by? Or?
We've got, yeah, the unfortunate thing is I can't bring that up. We did the municipality of Chatham-Kent, so I didn't take a look at that before we came out. So most of ours, a lot of our clients are utility-based, right? So it's a little different than your specific.
Okay with that.
Makes it easier for us. Could you look that up and get back with us on that tomorrow?
For the categories? We can do that. I mean, we can categorize them tomorrow.
So were those all the tabs you went through?
No, because we're still stuck on category.
Oh.
Well, I think the key is, well, the policy one, if we can just get the policy, the names, we can categorize them. We can go through that category tomorrow.
So can we go back to the spreadsheet then?
Yep.
Not that I'm leading this meeting, sorry.
Really believe that?
Did a good job, Carl. Don't let me get you.
Somebody's got to do it.
So
I would like my subcategory to be certifications. I like that, training and then certifications.
training and then certifications. Yeah.
Trainings do the last one.
Well, then you can do it differently for HR.
Well, the thing is we'd be using the
You
food
would
handlers
use,
per.
everyone would use the same thing.
And I think he's right. I think that if you were going to do that, you would just have your categories as policies, forms, procedures, certificates, and things like that, right? So then when the user saw it, he would just know which bucket he needed to go into to have access to that. So.
Would you like a copy of this video? Since I'm right.
Because it's really, it's all training, right? So you could have things that are,
Well, I don't even, I don't need it lower than that, because to me, again, looking at it from the user's side, they're gonna log in and they're gonna only see what's relevant to them. So, to me, that's fine.
so do you want their food handling certificates mixed in with their, like if somebody does more than one role, you would have multiple positions for that person, right? So I do food handling, I run the concession stand, but I also take care of the pool as well. So if I've got multiple certificates, do I want them all in one folder? Or do I want it to be broken out by sort of more the job specific type thing, or what it's related to? Like how do you do that in HR, like is the training categorized in any way in any of the HR manuals that you have right now?
Well, again, our perspective is just from a citywide, we maintain all the job descriptions, and so we have a list of which certifications are absolutely required for that position, and then we have citywide training that goes everywhere.
Okay.
And so if I was setting it up in that, just for that limited scope of training, I would do job-specific certifications so that I know if I go into that particular category, these are all things that are required by a position. Now, they may not be required for every position, but you know, that's where you would find it in that overall category.
Right.
The second category I probably have is, you know, citywide training.
Yeah.
And then the subcategory, you could break it down. I could see you could make another category for the policies, or you could have our citywide policies, or you could have another category for department policies.
Yeah. Yeah, but the department is going to be kind of linked to the positions, right? So why don't we do this then? Why don't we actually just do category and then put in what you think that would be, and then we'll have that discussion tomorrow. And then we'll just go through those and go, okay, do we need to go further? Does it make sense? Let's do that. The attachment type, that's just what kind of...
This would be a file.
this is what you see when you click on the training item. So does it bring me up a policy or a document? Does it link me to something external? Or is it just a note that says upload your certificate?
Oh, so it'd just be a note.
Yeah, so in this case, this one's just a note. And I think we said we were gonna call this one certificates, right? Okay. And then the attachment value, so if this was attachment, you would put in like whatever file name you were actually gonna put in there. Which in this case doesn't matter. The effective date, we'll leave that blank. I think we'll figure out a rollout later on, once we get further down the implementation road. And then for the renewal period, this is how often we want people to retrain on it. So
Every
this-
year.
Yeah, is it a 1 year,
It's a
3 year
1 year.
cert? Yeah.
So you put in days in that, or what,
Well, my son is
what do you,
through the county.
on the rescheduling period, is that?
So that,
So then that's like 30 days.
yeah, the renewal, so yeah, this always, we gotta change the wording on this because it always flips people out. It's the renewal period is how often you want somebody to retrain on it, and that's annual number of years. And then the scheduling period is how many days before that do you want to warn them that it's gonna be coming due?
Notification.
Yeah, notification days. So that's the difference between those two. And it's just usually because this is a much smaller amount of time. And then the scheduled review is how often should this document be reviewed by the, to make sure the content is still good. In this case, you wouldn't need to activate that blank. It's not that type of, that's for more like policies and procedures. And then the content would just be if you actually have a PDF file or a Word doc or whatever, but don't worry about that right now. We'll get those closer to launch date and get the current ones. So if we can do these parts, this is good, you've cut this in half. So if we can just get these started, I think we can get a good start on actually building those categories and getting the actual document list together. And put the certificates in there, documents, and any tests that you're also running right now. And even the external videos and things that are being done through BLR or other. And then we can make determinations on those two. And then don't do anything with the positions, the report samples and the forms. I think if we can just get this done or partially done, that would be great. And we can start categorizing and setting this up tomorrow. We'll have these discussions. Is that crazy?
Could you put a, maybe a highlight that the tabs that they should go into, maybe put a color on the tab?
For just the ones to
Well,
do?
we're just doing the training.
We're just doing training.
Okay.
So that's the only one. I put hold on this one, maybe
Okay.
put a hold on this one too. Because this will kind of get built from.
I sent you an email that has everybody's email in it, and everybody was copied on it, so
Okay.
if they didn't receive it, then they can email me that they didn't get it.
Right. So I'm going to leave that one sample in there, and we'll get to this. We'll have that sample. So we'll go through that. All right. Email it to the rest.
Does there need to be any sort of determination or acknowledgement of the difference between something that is required to be hired and then maybe you have something that's required, that has to be done within your first 3 months of being hired or your first year of being hired?
So the second part of that is like the orientation, like you're talking about an orientation or their own.
Well,
training?
so maybe you need a food handler's permit before we'll even interview you. Or maybe we say you can get hired for this and you have to get a food handler's permit within the first 3 months of being hired.
So this would be outside of that. This is employees. So this is post hire.
This is post-hire?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other part will be handled in Cayenta. For instance, like at CDL, we hire before they have CDL, but they have X number of months to get it. And there's a onboarding process where we check off that they completed what they have to do. for those requirements. And once again, lucky Chris gets to help set up that position control. But it's based on what the job description now indicates. And then what policy relates to, like what CDLs.
Yeah, the recruitment side is done through HR. So this is once you got it.
Okay.
This is just keeping them up to speed with making sure that they're aware of what they need to do.
Will that, sorry, just so I have this right in my mind. What if, so like a CDL is required before we hire them, but then they do also need to renew it every 3 years?
So
Then do you need it in both places?
no, so I understand the Kayenta system, and I don't know how it ties in this further discussion, but the Kayenta is also reminding when those come out, when those are due. And I don't know if it's pushing it into Springboard to do that reminder.
I thought this was pushing it back into Cayenne to remind them.
Because then are they gonna get notifications from 2 different
No, it's
places?
supposed to be singular. So have you had the discussion with Tony on like CDLs and licenses that are required at the time of hire and then renewal?
So those would, as an administrator, so as a process, those are gonna be, so if I had some certifications and things that they submitted as part of the recruitment process, is what we're saying? And then they actually get hired, so we need to just upload their profile with those items into Springboard. So currently, so they would get a position assignment once they become an employee. They would be moved into here, their position would be assigned, and then either administratively, we can upload those certificates in here. We don't currently have an interface with Kayenta that does that automatic, but that could be easily done as well.
Yeah, because there's a lot of those things that we'll be talking about between Kayenta, employee trainings being updated. We have a performance management system that's going to be part of that.
Yeah, so if those things are being collected already in Kayenta, then the easiest solution is just to push them over with the employee once they become an actual employee. And then, so day one, have, some of their requirements already fulfilled. Yeah, yeah. So that would be the easiest solution on that.
So in this case, with the food handler's permit, if it's required before they reach employment, they have to have it in the job description. So do we not need to add that?
Yeah, that's
If
what we were
that's the
just,
case,
so we can automate that transfer, so as soon as the user.
But on this list, though, do we need to have it on this list?
Right.
Yes. Just because it is going to be a requirement in the system.
It's just that.
The actual transfer will occur.
Say it.
So there's a bit of duplication going on. We have a list of all of the certificates and licenses that are required. We can provide that. Do you want them to also be going through that, or?
So the ones that I would need, so are you talking about the ones that there were certificates and requirements for recruitment?
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Some of them.
you know, like food handlers permit, sometimes they require that, if it's a wastewater certification or a post certification. We have a list, we maintain all the job descriptions, and we've gone through and said, these are the ones that are absolutely mandated that they have. We can provide that, and so it doesn't make sense for them to be doing that as well.
No, if you have those, that would be great.
Even
So
if
the
they
hard part is I
also-
don't know what list.
You don't know what he has.
I can send it to you.
Which does go to the point though that this is the official list for a job description, and so if there's something that should be on that, that means the job description needs to be updated. So it's a good check.
Oh, to see if there's anything missing
Yes.
from HR's list?
Daniel, you could email that spreadsheet.
To the same list that Gary gave.
Yeah. No, if you've got all
I
those,
think that's a really good idea. I think we're making some progress here.
Despite Jeff having to stick around for it.
There may be some that we are missing. We'd have to go into I don't know, did you go into the part-timers? I don't think we did. So we'd have to go through our part-time policy, and there's some on there like water safety instructor and stuff like that.
You've got until tomorrow morning.
and is that just certificates, or is that
Mostly-
actual policy procedure stuff?
No,
too?
that's licenses and certificates.
Okay.
So
Well,
then
that's
that
a big
brings up,
chunk.
if you're gonna send me that list, then do I take my items from that list and put them up here, or are you gonna put your items on this list and then I add anything that's not on that list?
why don't we use that as the master list, because it's.
Yeah.
And then just add to it.
Yeah.
So Chris is.
But your list,
There you go. This is a master list, then everybody just adds to it.
but it's not gonna be
But it has to
in
be
this
in
format.
there somehow.
But he can convert it to that format.
Yeah, yeah. We can convert
But
it
he may
into
not
this
know
one.
all those answers.
Well, that's what we're, yeah.
Yeah,
We could make
discuss.
that could be what we figure out. We could go through this, like how many are we talking about for the certs and licensing?
Well,
Hundreds, thousands?
you can sort it a couple of ways. There's not, 30 or 40 or so. We've assigned them to particular classifications. I don't know, that's what you want at this point.
And when you say classification, is that a position type classification, or what does that mean?
It's like,
Clarify our terminology for him.
I'm trying to think of how to do it.
Because we have this issue with client that uses different terminology.
Sure.
So if we say job classification, we call it like a classification for Office Specialist 1. And then we may have 20 Office Specialist 1s under that have a specific position assigned to them, a position number. So it's it generally, as Daniel was saying earlier, it's a one-to-one relationship to a person, to a position. Where we get multiple is if we go into the part-time area, we have maybe 80 or 90 part-time seasonal employees to one position. But otherwise, it's a one-to-one relationship, so you have the classification is up here, and then you have a lot of positions relating to that classification.
And in that scheme, a position is actually a person?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so, or multiple people, depending on what Gary just said.
With the
So the best way to describe it is as the office specialist classification. We have a general classification. An office specialist does basic clerical work, but it may just be in energy, or it may be in Parks and Rec, or it may be in the library. We don't want to have 20 different job descriptions for one classification, and the only difference is where they work.
Yep.
So we have that one particular classification. The position itself, though, is we do have individuals in those various departments. And so we take that classification, assign it to that particular position, and then assign a person to that position.
Okay.
And so you will see a lot of the same requirements, but they're totally different positions.
So you would have, just so I
Like
understand.
office specialist probably, right?
Office specialist is a good one. Yeah, and so we have career series in place as well. So police officers, you could be at police officer 1, 2, and 3. It just depends on where you're at, and then that's a separate position that, someone is assigned to that position number.
And then position 1, 2, and 3, those would have, in terms of employees, how many employees under each of those? Just one?
For a full-time employee, it's always 1-to-1.
Okay.
But when you get into Parks and Rec and library and energy, you may have a pool of laborers. And so you're going to say, the job code is for a laborer. We're going to assign it to this particular position number. But now we're going to assign 50 people to that one position number.
Because it goes to how it's budgeted. It's a bucket of money for that, and they can hire as many people as they want in that seasonal category.
But then the actual training requirements for police officer 1, police officer 2, and police officer 3, those would be the same? Is that true or not? Whether they're, and they could be in
A better one to look at is office specialist, because those classifications have specific requirements, correct? Like, anyone who's an office specialist 3 has to have, let's just say, a certain number of words per minute typing, or whatever it is. They all have those, and then when you divvy those out into different departments, like in our department, we have CID office specialist 3s, and we have records office specialist 3s. CID is going to have some specific requirements for that job, and records is going to have some specific for that.
And that's what goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is the plan from Kayenta is to go into those specific position numbers and identify that as a qualification. So in that situation, you may have a special certificate for investigations that the office specialist in HR does not require. And that's why, the position is what allows you to, so even though they share the same general classification, the position is what allows you to split that up and be very specific as to what that individual needs.
For instance, one may require a driver's license and another one may not.
That's another one.
The classification in general requires it, but there are some exceptions where it may not be required.
Okay.
We have a position control list that may help you, we can show that to you to help you kind of understand how
Yeah,
it's
no, I
working.
think that would be helpful, just for me to get my head around it. And see how we can map that onto what we've got. But I think back to the certification license listing, with the positions, why don't we, so if you can provide that, let's use that as the master, and then we'll add in any specialty ones. Yeah, and then I'll talk to Tony Lynn and see, because I need to see how they're converting what you've got into Kayenta for the classification / positioning.
But everyone would still need to go into their various department policies and stuff like that? We wouldn't have that.
For the policies, yeah. Yeah, we're still going to need to collect those. But if we can get, the certs.
Licenses and certifications, that I think we have that.
Would be a nice boost for us to get that. Okay, great.
We hope all.
Well, I'm saying we have some that aren't required to be hired.
Right.
Right, same here.
It's kind of like our apprentice, you guys probably don't have all the details of which ones on those, right? You
No,
just-
we wouldn't.
Do you?
You require a certain level of the apprenticeship program, so those should all be part of it. But, check it.
I think I know.
Yeah.
So do you want to give that to, is that something you can
Yep.
give to everybody? And then you pick the pieces that are for your department? Does that make sense to do it that way?
So Chris was on the mailing list that I sent out to each of the leads. Yeah, I know you were not, so if Chris wanted to send that out, she'd have that email list.
Dan, can I send you the email and then you can send it?
What?
Your interest in
Look, we'll update it for a couple of those things that we did not consider, like the part-timers, and then I'll send it out. Or Chris will send it out.
Or you'll send it.
Chris will hand deliver it to each one of them.
So I will forward this to Daniel and he can decide with Chris.
And it's by, Dan, you might want to explain it too, it's by classification number, so it must be sorted a different way.
Got it.
When you send it out.
Be sure to delete all your personal comments.
They're not on
Okay, so I just sent the as-is here, so we can always start getting those policies and procedures. We still need to collect those by department. And then I will talk to Tony Lan, and I just want to see how she's converting what you have now into a scheme, so we can lay these out properly.
Do you want us to have like a department code in there as part of the document name, or do we want that as a column so that you would know which department?
Well, you're each going to send me back, you're each going to have your own doc, right? So I'll know which department by,
Perfect.
yeah. I'll just say department numbers.
Is there some place on the spreadsheet you want to identify what department they are or who they are, who's the owner?
Well, I think when you save it, can you put your department just in the name of the document, and then when it comes to me, I'll see the department name on it. That should be good for me.
take your first whack at it between now and the time we meet tomorrow. If you want to be an overachiever and get it all done, that's great. Be done. But I think if you're uncertain about it, try to get a sampling as much as you can, and then we can go from there.
Yep, perfect.
Did you say you already emailed it out?
I did. And I think actually I sent yours separately because you had emailed me earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
What list did you get there?
Oh, yeah.
The attendee list here?
What's that?
I got the one from
This
Gary, but I
attendee
didn't
list?
get.
No, I gave him I just sent out the list of, I sent him an email that has you all CC'd on it, of the person who's the lead.
Oh, no, there's stuff to read.
He sent it out, I haven't seen it.
So did you not get yours?
Well played.
Well, but.
Cardi, how you do that?
She'll pay you later, Liz.
Oh, I missed it. I need to review the tape.
We're done, right? Are we done? Are we done?
Kari, are we done?
What? Are we done?
We're good.
I'm done.
Thanks, Corey.
If any of you did not get the email like Dick,
No, I didn't get it. It didn't go out of my,
He said it didn't send.
yeah,
I need you to add Dick to that because Dick didn't get. Copy that.
I'll forward it to you.
Well, I mean, so he can send it, yeah.
All your stuff in there, for it.
I'm not forwarding it to Jeff.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.